inquiry. Can I just remind everyone to silence phones and any other devices? So we're on the second day of inquiry session 2 on economic impacts, and our aim for today is certainly to take the appellant's witnesses, Messrs Jones, Finney and Mappin. Is there a realistic prospect that we'll be able to move on to hear one or both of the Council's witnesses? Does anyone have any views on that? It's not in your hands, I guess, Mr. Sir.
It's not, sir, although I was given some very optimistic information by Mr Innes, who's absolutely guaranteed that we'll finish all 3 witnesses by lunchtime, and I've taken him at his word.
Has he given any guarantees about our camera equipment?
No, sir. That would be a step, or is it a kick too far?
Mr Thompson?
Yes, it seems possible that we could get on to a council witness this afternoon, probably the first of the 2 rather than both. But
okay.
That's a definite hope.
Great, thanks for that. Any comments from anyone else on that? No. Okay, great. Mr Steele, you have Mr Jones.
Indeed, sir. And to facilitate progress, we'll be taking a great deal of this as read. Mr Jones, good morning. Could I ask you to read paragraph 1.1.1 and stop at the end of that?
Good morning. My name is Mark Jones, DIPSERV, MRICS. I'm a chartered surveyor and a partner at Cushman & Wakefield, an international property consultancy and advisory business based in Edinburgh. I have more than 27 years' experience working in the Scottish property market, of which 17 have been spent in Edinburgh.
Could I ask you to turn to page 3, section 2, and could I actually just ask you to read out section 2, and I'll ask you a further question or 2 at the end of that.
Section 2, the proposed schemes. The proposed schemes were not reviewed as part of my assessment. I have, however, undertaken a review of the process by which agreement between DHP and UHP was reached with both City of Edinburgh Council and Rosewood Hotels to reach the conclusion stated below. This is explained in my inquiry statement. RH and UH remain committed to the project, and I've therefore concluded that the schemes proposed are viable on a development and operational basis. The Rosewood Hotel developments have therefore not been assessed by C&W, as I've been tasked to investigate alternative development options. However, the viability of the proposed development means all alternative scenarios must also be viable if I am to prove whether its impact could be achieved in another way at the former Royal High School site. CEC has offered the site as a long-term ground lease. This tenure has implications in 2 areas. 1, not all uses can be developed under a ground lease. This particularly affects residential developments where there are no known existing situations in Scotland. And 2, CEC has stipulated use of the site as a hotel of international standing. Any variation from this use would require a formal lease variation, without which development could not be undertaken, as this would breach the lease conditions. It should be noted that I've ignored these limitations in my appraisals. I have quantitatively reviewed outcomes in terms of this limitation.
Now, could I just stop you there, please? And if I could just ask you a question about 2.42, which is the stipulation in the lease or legal agreement between us and the Council. Are you able to give us more detailed wording about that, Mr Jones, to assist an understanding of what the position is?
I can. I've been supplied with an extract of the agreement.
Could you hold, please? Could we all have a copy of that, please?
Is this the joint statement?
This is not the joint statement, sir, which is still in progress.
How much new information are we about to be given?
I don't think you're going to be given any new information, sir. It is simply confirmation of exactly what is stated at 2.42, which states that any variation from this use would require a formal lease variation, without which development could not be undertaken. Sorry, I should have read the first sentence as well. CEC has stipulated use of the site as a hotel of international standing.
Okay.
There's nothing new. I'm just giving you the precise wording.
Well,
Mr Thompson.
I'm slightly concerned about this because there is a redacted copy of the missives, which is available through a link in the documents. If what is going to be led comes from that document, that's fine. If it isn't, then it's still commercially confidential, and that's why we're having the agreed statement as to contents. I was concerned that there's a reference to the lease in this recognition, and I'll have something to ask in due course about that. But I certainly would be concerned if my learned friend is proposing to lead terms of a document which isn't publicly available and is, so far as I'm aware, still confidential.
Or the redacted parts of that document.
The redacted version's fine.
But not those bits that are redacted.
But not the redacted bits.
Mr. Steele.
Well, we're just checking at the moment, sir, to see whether that is or is not within the relevant document and or is not redacted. Frankly, I can't remember.
Can we come back to that?
We can come back to that if you prefer, sir. But if I can just stress, sir, there's no change in the position. CEC has stipulated use of the site as a hotel of international standing, and that's a legal agreement between ourselves and the Council, and that's in this recognition, and it's in the report that's before the inquiry as well. I was simply going to give you more precise wording, which may be of assistance, particularly next week when we come to conditions and Section 75.
Best to check first on the confidentiality of that.
Well, sir.
You can come back to us on that.
Please, to the conclusion section, at Section 8, and read that, Mr. Jones, please.
Section 8, conclusion. The inquiry is seeking to ascertain if the economic benefit of the hotel can be achieved in another way or on another site. I sought to answer whether it can be achieved in another way by analysing the former Royal High School site's potential for development under alternative uses. My 2015 report was independently assessed by CEC, and its outputs and conclusions deemed an accurate reflection of the viability of alternative uses. My approach under this report remains broadly similar. The appraisal outputs for all alternative commercial uses under the original scenario produced negative land values in 2015 and 2017. This indicates that development for these uses at the densities analysed is not commercially viable. This process has been updated for 2018. All land values are still negative, and my conclusion remains the same. Appraisals reflecting the proposed Scheme 1 and Scheme 2 footprints are mostly negative. However, under this scenario, development including a budget hotel is positive and therefore financially viable. However, when assessed qualitatively, there are operational, financial and legal restrictions that affect overall viability and ultimately prevent this use being taken forward. The suggested alternative scenarios, University of Edinburgh or 80-bed boutique hotel, are either not under consideration by the end occupier or not viable. CEC's desire to retain ownership of the site and limit its use to a hotel of international standing further restricts development and prevents alternative uses from being taken forward. In my opinion, there are no alternative commercial uses capable of using the site without firstly significant levels of development involving demolition and increased density beyond the Scheme 1 and Scheme 2 proposals, and secondly, a relaxation of the use stated within the development agreement. Reuse of the site in whole or part by a public organisation faces two issues, namely configuration of the buildings and funding. While there is a history of public and civic interests, these have failed to progress for several reasons, including building adaptation and funding. There is therefore no guarantee that individual projects of this nature are viable. The scheme proposals by DHPUH was not appraised, but given it is being progressed as a private enterprise, must be considered economically viable. In my opinion, I can therefore categorically state that the net economic benefits of the two proposed schemes cannot be achieved by an alternative use on the site of the former Royal High School.
Mr. Jones, can I just stop you there and take you back, please, to 2.42. Where you say that CEC has stipulated use of the site as a hotel of international standing. Is that correct?
It is.
And do you say that based on a consideration and having had sight of the relevant legal documents?
I had an interview with Bruce here at Duddingston House as part of my assessment of the CEC process, and I've seen an extract of the agreement between the parties.
And are you therefore satisfied that what you say there is precise and accurate and legally binding?
I am.
Is there any reference to a budget hotel in that context?
There is.
And what is the position about that?
It is described under the definition of development, and the agreement says development means the change of use.
Well, if you just think, I didn't ask you,
I think
I didn't
we're there
ask you
again,
to read
sorry.
that.
Sorry, it restricts the use of the budget hotel.
Right. There is a restriction on the use of a budget hotel, is that right?
That is correct.
Mr. Jones. If you just give me a moment, please. Sir, to answer your earlier question and that of my learned friend Mr. Thompson, my information is that the part that I was intending to read is indeed publicly available on a website or other. However, in fairness, we can't find it at this moment in time. So rather than refer to it now, perhaps I can return to this later rather than hold up proceedings. But the information I've got is that this is indeed, it has been, I think, acquired as a result of a freedom of information request and supplied by the Council and is publicly available. So if that is right, this should be no difficulty.
Yes, I think that you would need to come back to us, and I think to make sure that this is publicly available, I'd like Mr. Thompson to see it before you lead anything on it. Is there the prospect of something being lodged as a late document, this extract that's been released?
I'm sure we can do that. I think we just need to find it first, sir, which is ongoing at the moment. It may be neatest if we just had a moment or two to do that. Then I could perhaps put it to the witness-in-chief and he can be asked questions about it. I'm sorry about this. I had not anticipated this difficulty.
Well, I'm happy to take a break of a few minutes to allow that to happen, but I would like Mr. Thompson to see what you have before you embark on that with us.
And equally, sir, all that I would invite is that we be given a copy, because if we're allowed to cross-examine on these matters, we'd want to see a copy rather than having parts of text read out in an agreement. I'd like to see the actual hard copy, and that's all I'm asking for, because if we're going to refer to a document, we have to have it before we cross-examine, not released in this manner, which is basically something we haven't been able to prepare for.
That does sound reasonable.
Yes, sir. I hadn't, to be frank, document at all, merely to confirm the position as stated in the precognition at 2.42. If you would like to see a document, we can't obviously lodge the actual legal agreement with the Council because that's commercially confidential, but I understand that it's, the relevant parts are available elsewhere.
With the greatest respect to my learned friend, that makes it even worse. He shouldn't be relying on precognition evidence or evidence given in the witness box relating to a document which, part of which at least is before the inquiry. The best evidence on this matter is the terms of the redacted agreement, and that's what we ought to be looking at.
Which is already before us.
Via a link, but what we're talking about is getting paper copies of it, so,
okay,
so that it's easier to understand.
Okay.
Truthfully, I'm not sure I understand that, but perhaps if we're having a break, I'll have a word with Mr. Thompson and see what the issue is.
Yes.
I didn't quite understand what was being said.
Okay. Can we just break briefly then to allow principally Mr. Steele and Mr. Thompson to discuss this?
And I think my learned friend has a proposal.
Okay. Let's hear your proposal,
Well, sir,
Mr. Steele.
firstly, if I may just confirm the position, The part that I was intending to read is indeed lodged. It's lodged through the link at document CD 650. I earlier thought there was a suggestion that it wasn't. That's why I was being ultra cautious and double checking. But I have now in front of it on a screen, not my screen, the precise parts that I was intending to read. The difficulty, as I now understand it, is that my learned friend, Mr. Thompson, neither has a hard copy nor has it on his screen because he can't get the necessary Wi-Fi to check the point I'm about to put to the witness. So there are, I suppose, two possibilities. One is I could take that evidence from him in chief, and my learned friend can cross him about these points in due course when he's got an opportunity to get the information. Or alternatively, I could leave this point to one side just now and come back to it subsequently with this witness being recalled or with another witness. What I suggest would not be helpful is to delay matters while the Wi-Fi revs up or a hard copy arrives or whichever it is. But let me give the inquiry an assurance that the point I was about to put is available as part of a lodged document or a lodged link, actually, so that there's nothing sinister or in any way underhand about this.
I think I would prefer your second option, which is to come back to this later, either by recalling this witness or taking it with another witness. And probably best to get a paper copy for the other parties, if at all possible, and for us, in fact. Just to clarify, I've looked at document CD 650, and it seems to be an AHSS web page headed RHS Update Edinburgh City Council lease with DHP. Is that right?
That's correct, sir. And what they have done is to provide online a copy of the lease or the legal agreement between the parties. Certain bits are redacted. This has been supplied, as I understand it, by Edinburgh Council as a result of a proper Freedom of Information request, with certain bits redacted, and the bits that I was going to go to, well, obviously, are the bits that are not redacted and are therefore publicly available and are a document, if that's the correct term, I don't know, before the inquiry.
It's a bit odd to have a document with a link on it and then having to rely on the link. And I think if we're going to be asked to rely on this, I would rather have it published as a document and not a link.
Well, sir, I don't like anything in the computer at all, as you'll have gathered by now, so I would entirely agree with that. But it is actually the AHSS that put this on, so I don't criticise them.
I followed the link just now, in fact, and on the AHSS website there are a further 8 links purporting to be parts of various documents. So
I don't even know that, sir. But if you, I certainly would prefer a hard copy. And in truth, it happens I have a hard copy anyway. But if others would like one, there's no difficulty, and we can return to this in due course.
Perfect.
I have a slight difficulty with the course of action that you're considering taking, in that I had intended, and I do intend, to ask a few circumspect questions of this witness about this very topic. And so I feel disadvantaged if I can't go to that topic in my cross-examination because it's going to be returned to later. Now, in an effort to be helpful, I have the document in front of me on my screen, and I am more than happy to lend it to Mr. Thompson if that would assist him. But it may be that it's a bit sort of short notice of him, and I would understand that. But I do intend to ask a few circumspect questions about this witness about this topic, and I had thought that, as it were, I knew the lie of the land, and now that the land has shifted under me.
Swapping of screens at short notice doesn't sound ideal to me.
No, I would frankly like a hard copy.
Yes. It is a better option to move on to your next witness and bring Mr. Jones back later in the day when hard copies can be provided.
I'm happy with anything to facilitate progress. I think our primary aim is frankly, to get through all the evidence, sir, so the quickest way, most efficient way of doing that is ideal. I should, however, say that the next witness and the following one would probably have been referring to this as well in any event, because it is an important point for the purposes of conditions and the like next week. But I'm very happy to go to the next witness and not take this point from the next witness either. And hard copies, which I think the Council are trying to get because they've got a printer next door, clearly a slow one, but we can return to that as soon as copies are available.
Okay, I think we should do that if everyone's agreed that's the best way forward. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Jones, but you will have your day in court quite soon. Seems like he's not going to read it to anyone else. He's just said he's not going to read it with the next witness until they've got it.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So 10 o'clock start today then.
Mr. Steele.
Thank you, sir. Sir, just to confirm, because I've just been asked, Mr. Jones has not started his cross-examination, therefore is free to sit with and chat to others, I assume. Yeah. Thank you. Next witness, sir, is Mr. Finney. Mr. Finney, unexpectedly early, good morning to you. Could you read 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3 of your precognition?
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. I'm a specialist I'm a specialist advisor for hotels and resorts and head of hotels and resorts consultancy at Colliers International. My firm are commercial property advisors, and I've been employed with them since 2008. I have a Bachelor of Science honours degree in hotels, catering and institutional management, which was attained from Surrey University in Guildford in 1982. In my professional career of over 35 years, I have advised a wide range of developers, property owners, hotel operators, investors, public sector bodies, associations and banks on a range of hotel and resort development projects throughout the UK, as well as in Europe, Middle East and the Africa region. I've also advised on projects further afield as far as Mexico and the Caribbean to the west, and India and Kazakhstan to the east.
Now, Mr. Finney, could I take you straight to your conclusion section at page 9, and could you commence or recommence reading there, please? Certainly. And when we get to the end, of a couple of additional issues to ask you about.
By way of conclusion, I've elected to summarise my evidence under the headings that the report has identified for this inquiry session 2. Further details are available in my inquiry report. 3.1, assessment of the impacts and net economic benefits of the schemes, job creation, economic capacity and contribution to sustainable growth. The review that I've carried out of the two schemes has identified that the impacts and net economic benefits are very significantly positive and have been clearly demonstrated. These include the tangible and easily measurable effects which have been demonstrated using internationally accepted methodologies in the report prepared by Oxford Economics. In addition to the Oxford Economics report, I've provided evidence that Edinburgh is an undersupplied hotel market and it is underperforming economically as a result. I have further demonstrated that this shortage of hotel rooms is particularly acute in the luxury end of the market, with Edinburgh having fewer rooms in absolute terms and as a percentage of total hotel stock than, for example, Dublin. I have also evidenced that this shortage of hotel stock is manifesting itself in Edinburgh by way of a boom in unregulated accommodation, with Airbnb registering a 20% share of the market, higher by far than comparable cities. This unregulated stock doesn't always pay VAT, doesn't always pay business rates, does not meet the stringent fire, health and safety requirements of hotels, often doesn't pay correct staff wages and payroll contributions. However, they do benefit from the significant attractions that the city has to offer. While not all of this would be absorbed by a new high-end hotel, I have also evidence that the shortage of hotel accommodation is particularly acute at the high end of the market. To this, I would add the very significant, intangible and less easily measured benefits that cities gain following the opening of a world-class luxury hotel. This includes improved profiling of the city on a global stage, ability to attract ultra-high net worth and high net worth individuals to visit the city and perhaps to then decide to invest further in the city and in Scotland. The global employment opportunities that would be generated for the young people of Edinburgh and further afield, and the boost that it would provide for tourism and tourism investment within the wider region and throughout Scotland. It is worth adding here that hotel and tourism income is effectively a service export, in that it attracts people who have earned their money elsewhere to spend it within the market area. Accordingly, to the extent that the hotel will attract guests from other parts of Scotland, the UK and internationally, it improves the balance of payments of Edinburgh, Scotland and the UK. In my opinion, there will be a high proportion of guests that fall into one or more of these categories at the proposed hotel. These benefits are, in my opinion, significant, economically sustainable and demonstrated by the Oxford Economics report. They would accrue under both schemes, but the larger scheme, Scheme 1, providing a higher level of financial benefits. With reference to the inquiry report of Carla Parks acknowledges in 13.17 that the hotel is designed as a high-end hotel and that such a hotel could generate higher than average employment rates for hotels both directly and indirectly. Her primary concern here, and in 13.18, appears to be the ability to secure such positioning and a fear that is not possible through planning legislation. To help allay this fear, I can firstly point out the expense of delivering such a hotel and the development costs are so high that it would be totally unviable to deliver the hotel with anything other than a luxury market positioning. I would also point to my independent review delivered with Scheme 2, which pointed out the contract with Rosewood was above average length. The average length of an international hotel management agreement is 20 years, so the operation and positioning of the hotel is locked in for at least the length of the contract, and that my report can be inferred to be slightly longer than the 20-year period. My report also indicates severe penalties for curtailing this contract, and also the fact that it has features that would see the contract survive even the failure of the developer. To a significant extent, these features should allay those fears expressed by Carla Parks.
Now, I was at this stage going to ask you about the legal contract, but I will not do so in the circumstances, Mr Finney, but I do reserve the right to come back about that as well, sir.
Can I ask a question just for clarification? Sure. In that paragraph you read, I think that the contract would be slightly longer than the 20-year period, but your recognition says significantly longer. You aren't changing that evidence?
Not changing that evidence.
Okay,
sorry. Yeah,
was that a slip of the tongue, Mr?
Yeah, it's a significantly longer period. In 13.19, Carla Parks refers to the need to consider displacement. The report on this subject by HVS should allay those fears, as should my own inquiry report that clearly establishes Edinburgh as an undersupplied market. On the tests outlined in the Scottish Government draft advice on net economic benefit planning referred to in the inquiry report of Carl Drummond, my review of the 5 factors mentioned in relation to hotel development would further lead me to the conclusion the displacement effect would be very limited. 3.2. Could these benefits be achieved in another way or on another site? It is my opinion that there is not another site in Edinburgh that meets the qualifying criteria for a world-class luxury hotel in the time frame within which the former Royal High School would come to fruition, or is simply not available for development at this time. A detailed review was carried out of 22 potential sites through the city, with only the appeal site fully meeting these criteria. The research did identify the potential of St Andrew's House, but this is not considered to be available, and as such is not a realistic opportunity at this time. Were it to become available, there would be some design challenges around fenestration and ceiling heights, in my opinion. No viable alternative for the appeal site has been identified that would bring anything near the same level of economic benefits. In 13.20 of her inquiry report, Carla Parks contends that the benefits could be delivered elsewhere through the uptake of one or more sites with hotel development potential. The updated College report to this inquiry identifies that there were no existing available sites that were suitable. However, Carla Parks claims that it is her considered opinion that other windfall sites are likely to come forward. This demonstrates a clear misunderstanding of the very stringent criteria that such operators apply to site selection, and which we have exhaustively identified. The College report included possible hotel opportunities not currently being marketed, as well as identified hotel opportunities. There may well be windfall sites that bring forward hotel developments. However, it is my belief that there are none which will be suitable for a hotel of the standard envisaged, with the exception of St Andrew's House, which is not available for the use envisaged, nor will be available in the short to medium term, if at all. To illustrate her point, Carla Parks points to the recent granting of permission for the former RBS headquarters in St Andrews Square. This was covered in our report and is being developed not as a hotel but rather as short-let apartments, a long way short of what is proposed for the Rosewood Hotel. Carla similarly points to the India Buildings development, which I have had some considerable involvement with, having sold the India Buildings site on behalf of RBS West Register. This perhaps further demonstrates a potential lack of understanding of the quality of hotel proposed for the RHS at the India... I'll read that again. This perhaps further demonstrates a potential lack of understanding of the quality of hotel proposed for the RHS, as the India Buildings Hotel is due to be operated by Virgin Hotels. While it will certainly make an interesting addition to the Edinburgh hotel offering, this is a very long way away from a world-class luxury offering such as that proposed for the Rosewood. It is much more of a lifestyle offering, and while it might achieve a 5-star rating, it is much more of a corporate offering on a par with the W Hotel offering of Starwood Hotels and Resorts. Further evidence of a lack of understanding of the product proposed is shown in the suggestion that this could be delivered outside the city area, such as at Gleneagles 1322. This is a wholly different product, targeting primarily a leisure market to enjoy the country pursuits for which Scotland is rightly world-renowned. The Rosewood would be an urban hotel of equivalent stature. 3.3. Geographic extent of the impacts and whether impacts would be reduced elsewhere. The lifetime impacts and any risk to the outcomes predicted. The impacts would clearly be most felt within the City of Edinburgh, but it is my opinion that there will be a wider regional effect and that some of this would be nationwide. This is demonstrated by the work undertaken by Oxford Economics. Many of the wider impacts are often intangible and harder to measure, but one can look at the example of Gleneagles and the impact that this iconic hotel has had on the wider regional economy, in brackets Perthshire, but also on the national and international stage. We would envisage a similar wide-reaching benefits for Edinburgh and Scotland's new best hotel. I have also highlighted the positive impacts that the hotel would have on the balance of payments for Edinburgh, Scotland and the UK in section 3.15. In terms of the lifetime benefits, it's my evidence that such hotels have a very long life indeed and outstrip most forms of property in terms of longevity. While office developments have a limited shelf life and need regular alteration to suit the needs of constantly changing tenants on shorter-term contracts, hotels tend to provide a longer-term occupation and more consistent and sustainable use. Hotels have a high staffing ratio, and with technological advances clearly make while technological advances will clearly make some functions more efficient, there will always be a need in a high-end hotel for high levels of staffing. The range of jobs in a hotel is also varied from executive positions, such as the general manager, finance director, head of marketing, to administrative, including accounts clerks, reservation staff, skilled manual, chefs, senior waiters, housekeepers, receptionists, to more basic level staff, chambermaids, porters, junior waiters, etc. The details of the hotel management agreement with Rosewood Hotels and Resorts are confidential, but I can confirm that it is for a term considerably longer than is normal for such agreements and has clauses which mean that the contract would survive the failure of an investor, meaning the hotel quality would be guaranteed even in the event of the failure of an initial investor. This means that a new investor developer could not simply take over and operate the hotel at a different standard, such as 3- or 4-star hotel. The design, investment level and nature of the conceived scheme is such that failure would be extremely unlikely in any eventuality, and that even if this did occur, any new investor would be compelled to provide a similarly positioned hotel. The constitution of the development team has been carefully considered, and the project is well conceived and funded, making the risk of failure extremely unlikely. We would also highlight the following: that in my view, the development team are experienced and well qualified to develop a hotel of the nature proposed. The business plan has been well thought through and diligently prepared. There is documentary evidence to support the deliverability of the proposed business plan. While there are some discrepancies in the two operational profit forecasts, both of them show returns on investment that would lead us to consider the project viable. The developers have put together a strong and well-experienced advisory team capable of assisting the developers in achieving their objectives. The developers have contracted with high-quality operator with a proven ability to deliver superior and market-leading performance in the UK. And the development team have proposed a sensible finance plan and have provided evidence of its achievability. We understand that the Council has commissioned an independent review of the viability study from PKF, which reviewed the report work carried out by HVS and my own report. This report acknowledged the credentials of HVS, myself and colleagues, and found that the viability study had been well prepared in line with industry norms. It further concurs that Edinburgh is lacking a truly world-class luxury hotel and concludes that they could find no major concern in the reports reviewed. 3.4, relevant policy guidelines. I've not considered myself qualified to comment on this aspect, and this is evidenced elsewhere in the appellant's submissions.
Mr Finney, a couple of other matters, if I may. Firstly, you, I know, heard the evidence of Mr Wilkinson in relation to the World Heritage Site and the removal or deletion of 2 sites from the relevant list. As a result of your professional involvement, can you give us any detail about these 2 sites, please?
As far as I know, there's only ever been 2 withdrawals of World Heritage status. One of those occurred in the Middle East, where there was an area designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site on the grounds of it being a sanctuary for oryx, which is a kind of mountain goat, I understand. In that particular case, the national government had started drilling for oil in that location, and that was considered to be sufficiently disruptive as to make the withdrawal of that necessary. So that was a fairly extreme case.
And that, I think, was in Oman, to be precise.
Oman,
which,
yes.
is that right? That's what Mr Wilkinson
Yep.
referred to. So that was a desire by national government to drill for oil that led to that. Is that so?
That's my understanding, yeah.
And the second example, do you have knowledge about
the Elbe Valley near Dresden, which is a particularly beautiful valley, very close to the city. And again, the city council there decided that they needed to build a 4-lane highway bridge across this valley. And as a result, the level of disturbance to what was deemed an area of outstanding natural beauty was considered to be a case for withdrawal. So it was a very extreme intervention into that location.
In relation to either of these 2 examples, Oman and Dresden, do you see any comparison at all with what has been proposed here?
Absolutely not. And I mean, to the point where I think Edinburgh's World Heritage status is based on a whole series of monuments and areas that you have of global interest, and a modification to one of the buildings is unlikely to be something that would cause withdrawal or even probably cautioning.
And another mention was made of the warning card or watch list that Liverpool was put on. Do you have professional knowledge as to the reason for that?
I think I know that the scheme that was proposed there is a huge redevelopment zone directly near to the UNESCO World Heritage Site that consists of tens of thousands of square metres of development with buildings in excess of 20 stories. So that was a very major intervention.
And is there merely one building of in excess of 20 stories, or are there a number of them?
Several.
Again, do you see any comparison with the Liverpool yellow card and what we're proposing here?
No, neither in terms of scale nor in terms of type of intervention.
Now, I'm going to try and take the next matter, Mr Finney, very briefly indeed, because I understand that you have got considerable knowledge of the corporate issues in relation to the proposal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But I would only like to ask you one question about it, which in my submission will be the only relevant question in relation to this issue for the purposes of this inquiry. Are you satisfied, or are you not satisfied, that our mutual clients are in a position to sign any Section 75 agreement?
Yes, I believe so.
And that is a result of your knowledge of the corporate structure. Is that correct?
And the agreement surrounding that.
Yes. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Mr Thompson.
Thanks, sir. Good morning, Mr Finney.
Morning.
Just on that last point, do you have any legal qualifications?
No, I have none.
Okay. Am I right in understanding that you came on board with this project in February 2017?
I first learned about it in 2014, at the end of the year. Okay. But yes, my formal involvement with this project began in 2015. Yeah, with the submission of the second second scheme application.
Unless I'm losing the plot, I think the first scheme was in 2015
Sorry.
and the second one was 2017.
Beg your pardon, then you're absolutely right.
So it was shortly before the application for Scheme 2.
Yes. Yeah.
And was the primary purpose of your coming on board and joining the team to review the work of HVS?
It was to review all of the documentation. So I was asked to look at everything that was going to be submitted, have a look at it and advise as to whether it was complete and whether it made sense.
Right. So could I ask you please to have before you your inquiry report, which I think is a PP-49.
That's the inquiry report, I think, is it?
Okay, inquiry report. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I've got that in front of me now.
And we see, I think, on page 6, paragraph 2.5, that you reviewed 13 reports, and then we'll see them listed, I think, over the page.
I certainly reviewed all of these documents. It may not be exhaustive, but yes, definitely.
And at the end of paragraph 2.1, you said that you'd also retrospectively reviewed the work carried out for Scheme 1, although no report was prepared for that submission. Does that mean no report by you?
No report by me was prepared for that, but I did get sight of the HVS report that was done at that time.
Well, thank you. So turning to the list on page 7, I think it's the fourth one down, was the hotel viability analysis by HVS in February 2017. I take it that's the confidential one that was given to the council.
Yes.
And in brackets you say, and previous versions of that. Are those previous iterations of the Scheme 2 document? Or are you
sorry,
referring
that would be referring to the HVS document that was submitted, again, confidentially in 2015.
Right. So it's really 14.
14.
Turning on, please, to page 9 of the inquiry report. At paragraph 3.7, you conclude that the project was sound and adequately funded. Was that Scheme 2 you were talking about?
Yes, that was.
And what do you mean by adequately funded? Were investors in place, or what do you mean?
Yes, I had seen a document that demonstrated the commitment of an equity investor, and I had seen a term sheet from the firm that was interested in providing the debt funding. Sorry.
Was the equity investor within the UK or out with the UK?
They were operating from a UK office, but it's a large international investment fund that has assets under management of something like $100 billion US, which would be sourced globally.
Do I take it that by the time you came on board, the focus of your attention was on whether Scheme 2 was adequately funded.
Yes.
Did you make any investigations or consider the funding of Scheme 1?
No, I didn't.
You refer to the agreement with Rosewood. Do I take it that that's an agreement between Carlton Hill Hotel Limited Partnership and Rosewood?
Not directly.
Are you able to tell me who the contract is between
I've been given
Rosewood?
a structure diagram for the whole project that is confidential, and I have been asked not to divulge the full details of that. But what I can say is it's based on a fairly typical structure for international investment, whereby one has a structure around a property company, a structure around an operating company, and then until the hotel is developed, there's also a development company involved in ensuring that the hotel gets delivered. What I would say is that the agreement was signed with the operating company. The operating company has an identical shareholding to the development company, but there are development agreements around that and property agreements around that link. So there would be a direct link between Rosewood and Carlton Hill. But it's not signed by Carlton. The original management agreement is not signed by that.
Sorry, we may come back to that, but just a slightly tangential point. How familiar are you with the Edinburgh hotel property market?
Directly, certainly as concerns hotels, which is my area of specialisation, I would say quite closely involved. I've been involved quite closely in the past with hotel developments in the city. So I have a very good idea of who's looking for opportunities and where they are. And we have and Colliers has a local office here and has had it for more than 20 years.
Well, I was wondering, does your familiarity go back over 10, 15 years of hotel history in Edinburgh?
I've certainly done projects in Edinburgh over that kind of period of time.
Does the Carlton Gate project ring bells?
It rings very loud bells with me. I was involved with it, yes.
Right. Were you involved in the first scheme or the second?
I was involved in the second scheme by Artisan.
Right. Am I right in understanding that in the first scheme, I take it was talking about the redevelopment of the old New Street bus depot? Essentially,
yes.
That was the site.
Yeah.
In the first scheme, there was a master plan, I think, approved by the council, and then a successful planning application, and then the developer founded financially. Is that a...
As I understand, during the financial crash, they fell into difficulties, yes.
But there was an extant planning permission at that time, which included, I think, a five-star hotel.
I'm not aware of what... I worked on the new scheme. I didn't work on the old scheme, so I don't know what the original planning permission was.
Would a frontage on the High Street near to the new Parliament building be an attractive location for a luxury hotel operator?
You're talking about specifically the Carlton Gate site, or
I'm talking about,
or generically?
I'm talking about the site for which planning permission was given and to which the master plan related in 2006-07.
Personally, I think if we were talking about a sort of fairly standard, let's call it five-star, but good quality commercial hotel, I think you could probably get it to work there. I don't think it's a luxury class location because it's kind of in that dip there. It's a little bit, access a little bit difficult. the outlook isn't the very best. And it was obviously, there's quite what was planned, or certainly what I saw was planned, was quite heavy mixed-use development, so it wouldn't have created that kind of setting.
Well, there was going to be a piazza, I believe.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Piazza.
Sir, I hesitate to interrupt, but I'm not aware of any of this being foreshadowed in the Council's evidence, and accordingly, we are not fully briefed on this at all. It may be Mr Finney has some knowledge, I simply don't know, but I'm not aware of any of the Council's witnesses leading any evidence about this.
None have. This is cross-examination of an expert.
And Mr Finney, if he has limited knowledge of this, has already said, and should feel free to say.
I'm happy to answer the questions to the best of my knowledge, but I wasn't involved in that scheme that you're talking about, and some of those things that you're saying I'm not familiar with. But I do know what eventually went there, and we were involved in finding the occupiers for that.
And was that an apart hotel that eventually went there?
There was an apart hotel, and there were two other, let's call it budget hotel offerings.
Yes. Thank you. Could you have before you, please, Appellant's Production 3, one of the HBS reports, the one that has at page 7 the description of the various classifications of hotel.
Yes, I have that. Any particular page?
Page 7.
Yes, I have that in front of me.
And do you agree with the assessment of the risk involved in promoting what's there described as a 6 or 7 star hotel as being very high?
In comparison with a budget hotel, yes. But I think the danger with sort of charts like this is they tend to sort of move sequentially, and once you've gone to high risk, I suppose the next stopping point is very high risk. So I think what they're trying to say is it's higher risk than the previous category.
Yeah.
Is it very, very high risk? Probably not if you've done your proper due diligence and you've made sure that you've got the right operator, you've got a good location. You can certainly mitigate those risks.
And do we see that the estimated room cost for a 6 or 7 star hotel is between £500,000 and £1 million?
I do see that.
Would you agree with that?
No. I think that would probably be the very high end of the range. If you were developing something in London and you had another major European capital and you had a large element of land cost, I could see the overall project getting to that level, but it would not be normal, in my experience.
And what would you think of as the normal cost for a 6 star hotel?
I think it's very dangerous getting involved in normal costs because there's no such thing as a normal building. You have greenfield site with everything, all the services there will cost you one price. Another thing is if you've got a difficult site, you need to bring services in, you need to make alterations. And another thing again would be where you have an existing building, and another thing again would be where you have a kind of monument building, where there would be additional costs. I would certainly say sort of anything over around £350,000 a room construction costs would be able to deliver a very high quality, high-end hotel.
Just thinking about the range of greenfield to central London, where does the former Royal High School site sit on that sort of...
I think that it would have additional costs because of the sensitivity of the building. So I would expect the cost to be a little bit higher than than normal on the construction cost side. I don't know the full details of how much was paid for the land, but that may have been less expensive than a site in central London.
But there would be conservation costs.
There would be. With any old building, one needs to take care, and that does generally make it cost a little bit more.
Yeah. Looking at paragraph 3.20 of your report at page 11.
So we're back to the 49. Yep.
We're back to 49, yes, please.
Paragraph
3.20. And there you give a construction cost of £51.6 million, equating to £430,000 per room. By my arithmetic, that's 120 rooms, not 127. I just wondered why you had done that calculation.
I don't know. Perhaps that was the number that I used to calculate it with, but I'm quite happy to accept that that's an arithmetical error.
So it would be more like 406,000.
Yeah. And one needs to bear in mind that's just the construction cost, so that isn't the total development cost. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, where would that go up to in this case, you know, if we were trying to equate it with the cost figures that we saw in page 7 of APP3?
Sorry?
If we were trying to think of the whole cost, which presumably was the figure that we saw in APP3, where would, starting with a construction cost of 406 odd £100,000, take us up to?
I think, if from memory, the total development cost. So the construction cost here is 54 million.
Yeah.
I think the total development cost, including absolutely everything, was around 75.
And then you divide that by 127 to get to the room cost.
Correct.
I think you also address in this report the issue of how the first scheme, which seemed to require a minimum of 147 rooms to be financially viable, morphed into Scheme 2, where 127 was able to achieve the same viability threshold. Did you hear the evidence yesterday about the factors which went into that change?
I was in the room for the evidence of Mr. Kent.
Yes. I think he put his finger on 3 factors. Would you agree with his evidence on that matter?
If you briefly remind what those 3 factors were, I think one was the market has improved. Absolutely, that's definitely the case. In fact, if you look at the Edinburgh market in 2017, the overall RevPAR increase is, I think, 12.4%. So definitely the underlying operating profitability had improved significantly, and probably more than had been forecast. The other thing was yield compression and interest rates, etc. So funding costs would definitely have been lower. Yep, both the availability and the quantum and the pricing of debt would have been lower than in the previous analysis. And also there would have been what we would term yield compression, which means that on the exit value, which is part of the overall valuation, one would probably have applied a lower factor than would have been the case 2 years earlier, because general returns have been quite low, so expectations would be lower when it came to an exit. And the third point?
Reduced building costs.
That, I think, was related to, I think in scheme, the public areas were relatively similar. So it was a question of adding
all the ballroom, all the rest of it. And a certain level of the staff, presumably, as well.
Yeah, correct. to in the review that I carried out. It seemed to make sense. I also know that Rosewood's own technical services people have been over the drawings and that they were comfortable with them. And I have seen emails from Rosewood saying that they're happy with both schemes.
But you did take some interest in Scheme 1.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're familiar with the fact that there were physical differences.
Yes.
In particular, there was public access to the lower ground floor on Scheme 1.
Correct.
Which there isn't in Scheme 2. And that there was underground garaging for the servicing in Scheme 1, but not in Scheme 2.
Correct.
Do you regard either or both of those as significant operator attractions or deficits or what?
Neither scheme. I saw both schemes as workable, so it wasn't sort of mission critical, if you like.
And just going back to the funding for a moment, does the fact that borrowing became more attractive by the time of Scheme 2 suggest that there was greater borrowing in the financial or the funding scheme for Scheme 2 than there had been in Scheme 1?
It's possible. I don't remember the exact calculations.
And the three factors that we've been discussing, are they the macroeconomic factors that you refer to in paragraph 3.22 of your report? As you say, it is my opinion that there were macroeconomic factors which occurred between 2015 and 2017 which transpired to create a more favourable development environment.
Yes.
And then on top of that, there was the reduced building cost.
There was a reduced building cost. I think that was to do with primarily excavation of basement.
Yeah. Could you just help me to understand, from your perspective, what the greater risk associated with the second scheme was?
Simply that fewer rooms, therefore less income available to service the investment.
I think one final point about your familiarity of with the Edinburgh hotel market. Have you read Carla Park's rebuttal recognition?
I did read it.
And her reference to the redevelopment of the former Bank of Scotland building rather than the Royal Bank of Scotland building in St Andrews Square, which I think is being carried out by or for Gleneagles Hotel for a small luxury hotel. And would you accept that that is a hotel development of a luxury nature taking place in St Andrews Square?
I would certainly expect. I've had a look at the application. I've seen the design and access statements and the drawings of that. It's not, as far as I know, it's not permitted yet, unless you are going to tell me otherwise. I don't believe it's permitted yet.
I would settle for a pending planning application.
Okay, yeah, pending planning application. I think there are some alterations to the building that may or may not get approved. I think it's 33 bedrooms, very small. I wouldn't consider it to be. We would certainly not expect that to have the same scale or impact as a Rosewood hotel with 127 rooms.
That wasn't quite what I had in mind. It's adding to the stock of luxury bedroom accommodation.
It will add 30. If it goes ahead, it would add 33 rooms at the high end of the market. Personally, I wonder how viable that is, but it's not my money going in.
No. Glen Eagles have a certain track record.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. McIntosh.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Finney, you seem to be saying, in essence, that there's a gap in the market at the higher end. It's above the existing operators. Rosewood fits the gap, and this site is currently the only way we're going to get a six-star hotel of international standing. Have I basically, that's the essence of what you're saying as part of your evidence?
Yeah, as a gist, yes.
Now, yesterday you heard Mr. Kett's evidence, and I'm hoping to take this short. I got the impression from Mr. Kett's evidence that one of the things he was prepared to accept was that the boundary between the top end of an STR definition of luxury and beyond, there's a softness or a woolliness, I think he might have used. And some people will take one view, other people will take other views. It will turn on service, and it's not a precise definition when we get up to this luxury end of the market, and people will disagree. Can you accept that? Because it saves a lot of time if you do.
Well, I think I'd accept that a very precise definition as to what a luxury class hotel is difficult to define. It's more than an objective criteria. There is going to be some subjectivity.
And so again, I hope you'll accept this, but if you don't, I'll understand and I can explore it a little bit more. One of the ways to step down from the very highest level is to reduce your level of soft services, i.e. staff, activity, and you have to go a certain distance down before you end up with less physical rooms and facilities and restaurants. So there's a sort of, you can reduce a building within its design envelope to a certain extent before you get into complicated architectural questions about walls and rooms and things.
So could you just repeat it? I don't think I fully understood that.
So if you had a hotel that was at the top end in your mind,
yeah,
and you wanted to, as an operator, just to bring it down a little bit for some reason, perhaps you felt there was more demand at that level. To do that to the first stage, you're doing it by removing soft things, that is, people, time, rather than actually having to go in there and gut the place and start from scratch. There is a softness, again, in the operational decision-making, just in the very broad terms.
In very broad terms, yes, but you'd be carrying a lot of... the building is designed with a lot of public space, very generous spaces, so those spaces, even if you take it down scale, you're still going to have to heat those, clean them, etc. So you'll have a very high fixed cost in a hotel of that nature. So if you bring it down too far, you could run the risk of making it not viable.
And that almost loops back into the conversation you were having with Mr. Thompson about adding rooms at the other end in order to provide more income at a marginal level.
I think better efficiency.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Right, so that's short and massive, very helpful. Now, I'm very conscious here that there are places we can't go, and I'm not intending to ask you any questions that causes you to breach confidentiality. So if you think I am, stop me.
Yeah.
Okay, before even Mr. Steele needs to. I don't want to go there. So I want to first start off with an open question. You've described yourself as an independent witness. What do you think that means to you?
Well, I wouldn't describe myself entirely independent because obviously I'm being paid by one of the parties. But certainly I was asked to take an independent view and sort of come up a level and have a look at the overall project to see if it all made sense.
And I don't need a name of a person, but I need the name of an economic entity. Which economic entity asked you to do that?
Initially, it would have been DHP, Darlington House Properties, and then in combination with Urbanist Hotel Group.
Thank you. So let's sort of step on a bit. I get the impression from the way I read your material is that you're the only person who tells us, who gives an overall picture of, in a sense, as you described to Mr. Thompson, how that structure is supposed to, what it's supposed to achieve, and that you think it will achieve its objective of delivering a Rosewood hotel. I may have misunderstood, but you give a, I don't want to get into the structure, but you give an overarching opinion. You've looked at the team, you've looked at the agreements, you know the parties, and you've come to a view. Am I right about that?
Whether I'm the only person, I don't know, but I certainly I was asked to look at everything. There wasn't any areas put sort of out of bounds, if you like.
And in your report, you say you've assessed the team, and presumably you've spoken to or seen emails from or communicated with many of the people, many of the economic entities and their staff in the team.
Yes.
You, again, I'm trying to be careful. I'm staying outside the too much mechanics here. But in the developer statement, which we've looked at a number of times on CD 201 at page 3, and have you read that document?
Let me just...
Yes, please. If you just turn to page 3 when you get it, I think you'll recognise it instantly. It'll be easy to deal with. So on page 3, so this is a developer statement for Scheme 2, produced by the appellants. And as you'll see in the penultimate paragraph, it says, DHB Urbanist Hotels have confirmed to senior C officers that their co-investors, Oak Tree Capital Management, remain fully committed to the project, as do Rosewood Hotels. Now, the reason I go to that is because with Mr. Thompson, you were being a bit more circumspect. And I need to ask about 5 organisations. I need to ask a question about each of them that won't breach your confidentiality. At least I think it won't.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 organisations that I've gained the impression are involved, and there may be others, that's not my point, is Duddington House Properties, Urbanist Hotel, Oak Tree Capital Management, Rosewood Hotels, and the vehicle that actually controls the missives, which we think is called Carlton Hill Hotel LP. Now, have I got anything wrong? Are any of those not in the process? That's the first question.
They're all involved.
Thank you. So you've assessed them. You've assessed the transactions between them. Some of the transactions.
I'm not going to say I will have exhaustively analysed every single transaction, but I'm aware of the entities and I'm aware of agreements between them.
And you're not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer.
But you've been operating in the hotel field. You're not a surveyor either.
I'm not a surveyor.
In fact, are you a member of any professional body?
Nope.
No. So you're an experienced man of skill, I think is what you would put yourself out to be. Right. So as a man
hotels, if it's to do with hotels and development of hotels, I feel very comfortable. And obviously areas related around that. If you start talking to me about shopping centres, I'll probably glaze over.
Please be assured I'm not going to talk to you about shopping centres. Now, in your report, and I don't need to go to it because I think we can all read it, you've told us about the operator agreement. You've given your opinion on that.
Yes.
You've told us something about the funding structure. You've given your opinion about that.
Yeah.
You've told us about the business plan.
Yeah.
And you've looked at all those documents.
Yeah.
Now, are you aware that no director or partner of any of those 5 entities has given evidence to this inquiry? Are you aware of that?
I'm not openly aware, but I take your word for it.
So are you comfortable that you're the only person who's been put up, who's the only person who is being, in effect, cross-examined about the limits of your reassurance on this topic, which ultimately has to be considered by Scottish ministers? Are you comfortable taking that responsibility?
By that, do you mean, are the people better able to answer some of these questions than me?
Well, that's one question, but I'm more that I get the impression that if we're to proceed in various routes that we may end up that based on documents lodged, we have to rely, or the Scottish ministers are being invited to rely on, for example, that Rosewood will turn up and do what they say.
Yeah.
That whoever's got the money, and again it doesn't really matter, but it may be one of the entities I've listed, will turn up and spend it and restore the buildings. We're being asked to rely on these things.
Yeah.
And unless I've got it wrong, and I suspect Mr. Steele can correct me in re-examination if I have, you're the only witness, in terms of physical witness as opposed to paper, that speaks to, yeah, it's fine. And you're giving that assurance to the reporters and Scottish ministers. Are you comfortable about that?
I'm very comfortable in saying what I know, yeah.
Okay. So there's one final thing I wanted quickly to deal with, and that was, and I thought I'd ask you this question, but I could have asked actually any of you or Mr. Kett or Mr. Jones. One of the ways I've read all those of you who are experts on hotels is that Rosewood needs a building like the Royal High School, that it can't do its thing in Edinburgh with a converted bank or a converted insurance building or something, or a more mundane building. Again, have I misunderstood the broad tenet of what you're saying?
What I would say, I wouldn't be quite so specific. I would say it doesn't. That they have a very stringent set of criteria, and I know that there was a competition run at the time to try and to find an operator for this, and that there were other applicants that also candidated themselves to be the operator of the hotel, and that Rosewood was selected as being the one most appropriate.
And you're aware that that process was, it wasn't the planning process, it was this competitive dialogue carried out. We've had evidence about that. So it's not a planning process. You're aware that it's got elements of that, elements of economic development, and somehow it's a combination of many things. You're aware of that?
Sorry, could you? I didn't understand that question.
So you mentioned the process, and I wasn't necessarily intending to go there, but since you've mentioned it, why you mention the process? What assurance does it give us? Why is it important to my question about Rosewood's desire to have this wonderful building?
Well, I think it gives a certain amount of comfort that there are a number of operators out there actively seeking a representation in the Edinburgh market, and this is the only project yet to have been able to attract one of them.
So I'm not in any way objecting, but I do wonder if there's cross purposes here.
I wonder if there's a lot of confusion between two processes going on here. I took Mr. Finney to be talking about the process between DHP Urbanist and an operator, rather than the process run by the council.
That's a very useful insight. I will check that.
Sorry, I misunderstood that. Beg your pardon.
Is that the process you were talking about?
Yeah, I was talking about...
That's fine.
Sorry.
I don't need to go down this little cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So just to go back to where I was at the beginning before I got confused. Yeah. And so I can understand. You're saying that this building, you're not... So start again and we'll just make sure I get the answer right. I put to you that Rosewood are effectively saying they need a building, this building, or a building as exciting as this, and it wouldn't work in a more mundane building, of which there may or may not, in the past or in the future, have been examples in Edinburgh.
Yes, yes.
And are you conscious, you mentioned in your report that in one of the reports you produced that Edinburgh is almost a picture postcard definition. Do you stand by that?
Sorry?
You mentioned Edinburgh as a picture postcard definition. Do you stand by that?
Did I say that?
Yeah, well, it might not be you, it's one of your teams. Fair enough. Let's get you to it. It's PPA-230-2178, which is one of your reports. And it is, if I've got the right page, it's page 11. And it's your assessment of this particular site. And this is my last topic.
So, number? Page?
Page 11, paragraph 3.2.
APP 38, not 3.
Sorry, AP 38, paragraph, page 11, paragraph 3.2.
3.2. Wait, so where do we say that?
So you've got a table, which I took as one of the methods you're comparing.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're right. It says here picture postcard.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
you're absolutely spot on.
What I wanted to take it from it here is, given that you accept it's a picture postcard location.
Yeah, it's a great location.
It's a great location. Yeah. It's mentioned in the nomination document for this city to be a World Heritage Site as the building that most justifies this being the Athens of the North. You'd accept all that?
I have no idea.
No idea, exactly.
What I do know is on the World Heritage Site, it doesn't appear in the first page of pictures.
Yes. Are you an expert in World Heritage?
No, I'm not an expert in World Heritage.
So When you give evidence about why or what's happening in Liverpool waters or Oman or on the Elbe Valley, where does your expertise in that come from?
It comes from general expertise in tourism and visitation.
Because you were asked about that, and so I feel I have to take you to various documents and see if you've read them. So could you please have CD 369, EW 35, and CD 519?
Can I get some help with that?
Have these numbers again, please.
CD 369, CD 519, and EW 35. And actually CD 621 as well, whilst we're there. So
So I've got CD 369 in front of me. Is that the one you want?
yes, so that's the letter from ICOMOS objecting to Scheme 2, isn't it?
It's a letter, yeah. From.
Have you read it before?
I haven't read this letter before.
So to shortcut things, the CD 519 is a letter from UNESCO to the Department of Culture in respect of Scheme 2. Have you read that?
519. No, do you want me to read it?
Well, it might not be necessary. And then EW35 is, just for completeness, a letter from ICOMOS in respect of Scheme 1 as an objection.
Yep.
And then CD 621 is a UNESCO report, and it contains elements to do with Liverpool waters and what happened there. Now, I want to just check, have you read any of these?
I haven't.
No. So do you know, and I suppose it's not even a topic for this session, but it's been raised, do you know the reasons why ICOMOS objected to both these schemes?
Well, not having read the letter, no.
No, okay. And so...
Do you want me to read it?
No, I think if you haven't read it, I don't think... that's all I want to take from you. The final thing is simply this. Are you aware that Liverpool remains on the UNESCO danger list?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thanks, Mr McIntosh. Do you have more than 10 minutes of cross for this witness, Mr.
Probably so.
Okay, let's take a break in that case until 11:15.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Finney. Can I just kick off with just a little more background? In terms of your involvement, presumably you understand that the missives with the Council were formerly with Duddingston House Properties Limited, and that there was a formal assignation of those missives to Carlton Hill Hotel Limited Partnership.
So I believe, yes.
Yes. Have you seen the documents?
I have seen parts of the document.
You haven't seen the whole document?
I haven't seen the whole document.
Yeah. And would you, even with your knowledge of property transactions, agree that without seeing all the documents, it would be quite dangerous to reach bold conclusions about what may or may not be in those documents?
There'd certainly be some caution attached to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And insofar as Carlton Hill Hotel Limited Partnership is concerned, that's obviously the current vehicle which has the contract with the Council with its relative suspensive conditions.
So I believe.
Yeah. Do you know anything about Carlton Hill Hotel Limited Partnership?
I do.
Yeah. And insofar as that entity is concerned, does it involve partners who are also not the appellants in respect of this planning application?
Yes.
And that would be the reference to the various oak tree entities?
Yes.
And that's not secret because obviously it's been disclosed as part of the position statement and the information with the Council. But that ultimately ends up with the oak tree interests being held by an oak tree European Principal Fund III. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. And that's a limited partnership based in Cayman?
I don't know where it's based.
And in terms of this type of transaction and the role that Oak Tree are playing, that's not at all unusual, is it?
Sorry?
that's not at all unusual that ultimately there'd be, whilst we talk about Oak Tree Capital, that it would be one of their European funds that would be involved in a project in Europe?
Yes.
Yes. Now, equally, I'm just struggling a little bit. You give us certain information about the Rosewood Agreement, but obviously not all of it, and so it's therefore your choice as to what to reveal. Is that correct?
I'll answer every question that I think is not commercially. So things like the terms of the contract are very difficult because they're commercially sensitive, and if that became in the public domain, that would give competitors knowledge of the kinds of terms that they're offering. Right.
So the details out, but one thing you can give us an indication of the length of the contract. Would there be elements within it of performance that Rosewood need to meet as well? Is that
Sorry?
Is the performance requirements that Rosewood have to meet? And I'm not looking for any detail.
Typically, under a hotel management agreement, the fees of the management company are based on a percentage of turnover and a percentage of profit.
Yeah.
And this is not untypical in that respect.
Yeah. But one matter you're very keen to tell us about is what happens in the event of various people failing. And in that context, could we look first of all at APP 49, at 6.3.5 on page 23. You state that obviously the agreement's confidential, but you say that it has clauses which mean that the contract would survive the failure of an investor. Do we see that?
Yes.
Well, how would a failure of an investor cause trouble?
Sorry?
How would the failure of the investor, presumably that's somebody putting up money that fails, because you at various stages of the thing you change as to which party might have a trouble or a difficulty. This one you're talking about the investor, and then in your precognition at 3.17, you talk about there being trouble with the developer, and at 3.35 again. We have a failure of an investor or failure of an investor. So it seems to me that you're perhaps...
What operators like to do is to ensure that their contracts survive the failure of any of those parties. So, in other words, the contract would be live and would pertain to that property in the event that one or more of those parties were to fail. So it's kind of a non-disturbance contract, whereby in the event that something happens, the rights and obligations remain with that property.
And insofar as that would try and work, let's just think through that. Is that effectively the key party in the whole chain is whoever's got the long lease from the council, is that correct?
Yes.
And if for whatever reason there was a solvency issue with that particular party, that would often be a ground for ending the long lease. Is that correct?
It might well be.
Yeah. Now, in that situation, could you explain how a contract, as you've identified with another party...
Normally, when the contract is finalised and becomes effective, they would seek to have all of those parties to the contract agree to continue it in the event of a failure.
So do they become the tenant? Is that the proposition that Rosewood would step up?
No, but they would be the tenant would either then the new tenant would either then be bound by the contract, or they would have to terminate, and the termination penalty is very significant. It would be an 8-figure sum.
But strictly speaking, if we had the insolvency of the tenant, that the insolvent, that's the whole purpose of insolvencies, is to get rid of onerous obligations to third parties. So this would be something that the Council would have to agree to, is it?
Technically,
Okay.
it's not my area.
But there's something in the agreement with whatever entities entered into agreement with Rosewood that they'll try and do that or seek to achieve that?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
And that would be similar in the context of a bank lending on a long lease too?
Correct.
Yeah. And yeah. Could you have CD 204, please, which is your earlier report? 205, sorry, I think it is actually.
Yep, I have it.
Thank you. Better? Yes. Yes. Just looking to understand a bit about the funding structure at section 3.4 on page 12, please. Now, I note that in the second paragraph you say you've CD 205, which is your independent report of 10th February 2017. CD 205? That's your report, is that correct? Yeah. And page 12 of 22? Yeah. Mine's got a heading final draft on the top of it. Is that the same as yours? Or?
It does.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Thank you. Just understanding, second paragraph down, you say, I've seen correspondence from the major co-investor confirming their current and future commitment to the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's correspondence, is that correct? And we'll come on to look at other matters. Can I just understand what you mean? And the current well-known private equity fund is the Oak Tree Capital, is that correct? Yeah, thank you. The next concept is the financial plan, which is obviously the business plan that you've reviewed, envisages a senior loan facility for approximately 63% of the development costs. Who would be providing that?
There was a bank that had provided a term sheet for that loan. I had slides of that. I think I explained at the time as well that had probably lapsed. It was a fairly normal financing. It wasn't
Yeah.
there will be other potential investors.
So just to be clear, the information that you had was the, I think in your report you set out the various documents that you've had regard to, and one of them was the non-binding term sheet from a bank from November 2015. Would that have been in relation to Scheme 1?
Mr. Finney, your microphone's off, if you don't mind.
So sorry, I'm afraid I forgot, I cannot find or didn't hear the reference to the previous matter.
Well, I'm in CD 205, and in the earlier part of it at page 6, there's a reference to all the documents reviewed, and about two-thirds of the way down, there's a non-binding term sheet from a renowned bank, confidential, November 2015.
Correct, and there had been another document more recent than that from the same bank.
Okay. Relating to Scheme 2?
Relating to Scheme 2.
And is it out of date as well?
I think it's out of date as well. Yeah.
So, can we just agree that at the current time, there is no binding contract in place for that senior loan facility to be provided?
It wouldn't be possible because the transfer of the land hadn't occurred yet and the planning condition hadn't been met. So it would not be possible.
And it wouldn't be normal at this stage of the development process to have that level of commitment from a bank with these uncertainties at the current time?
Well, in terms of once the planning condition is met, and once the lease had become effective, then it would be possible to organise the funding.
But at the current time, there isn't one. Thank you. And equally, in terms of Oak Tree Capital's commitment, would they all have to take a final investment decision from the fund?
It would be conditional on planning.
Yeah, and would they still have to take that decision?
And if the fund had changed, they might. But I think if it was the original fund, I believe it was in place.
It's in place, but would they want to have a final look at the costs?
It would be normal. It would be normal to have a final board approval on the final
of the full project as it stood at the time,
Correct.
relative to the current market conditions.
Correct.
And currently whether it met their investment aspirations.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I have seen an email as recently as last week from Oak Tree confirming their support for the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Finney. Thank you.
Mr. Steele.
Thank you. Mr. Finney, just, I think, 3 questions arising from Mr. Innes's interesting cross. So far as Oak Tree is concerned, can you assist us, please, to tell us where that is in world rankings? Is that a very small local investor, or is it something that's slightly bigger than that?
It's a large global investor with assets under management of around $100 billion US dollars.
And how does it rate in the marketplace worldwide in terms of size and experience?
There'd be a few that are larger, but it would certainly be one of the large ones.
And you say you saw an email last week from them, and what was the import of that email?
That they continue to support the projects. Actually, both schemes. They said they would be happy to continue to support either of the schemes.
Now, secondly, you were asked questions, no doubt with a view to suggesting funding wasn't there, but you're asked questions as to whether the funding was actually in place at this moment in time. Now, is that possible at this moment in time, Mr. Finney?
No.
Is that because, for one main reason, we don't yet have planning permission?
Absolutely.
Is that the stumbling block to having the funding?
I think the planning permission, and I think that the planning permission is what gives effect to the lease as well.
So until we get planning permission, we cannot purify the missives. Until that is done, the funding cannot be handed over. Is that the position?
Correct. And also the management agreement is conditional upon the planning as well.
Would it be surprising to you if the funding indeed had been handed over before planning permission was granted? Would that be rather unusual?
It would be very unusual, yeah.
In fact, it would be preposterous, wouldn't it?
It would be very unusual,
yes. Yeah. So in the real world, you don't get your money until you can actually proceed. Is that how it works, Mr. Finlay?
Absolutely.
And would that be a surprise to anyone?
That wouldn't be a surprise.
Thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Finney. Are we in a position to have Mr. Jones back?
I think so.
I overheard
well,
some mention of printer problems or something. Mr. Thompson.
I agree that you couldn't make it up. I've now got some of the pages printed out. Perhaps if you allow me 5 minutes before moving on to or moving back to the first witness, I could just clarify the position and take instructions.
Okay. Would you prefer to have Mr. Jones before Mr. Mappin, or could we take Mr. Mappin?
I would prefer to have him first, sir. I understand that we have got copies. You'll have possibly overheard what happened, but we've got copies on its way from Saltire Court now in light of the equipment failure by the Council. So whether it's 5 or 10 minutes, I don't know, but
They're on their way.
They're in a taxi on their way now, I understand.
Well, let's break now until the documents arrive.
Thank you, sir.
Well, ever optimistic. Thanks, sir. The position is that, thanks to my learned friend, we now have paper copies of the initial text part of the missives in redacted form, as is an inquiry document if one has the skills to find it through the internet. The stumbling block that remains is that there are various documents, agreements, and the lease, which were in draft form attached to the missives, the execution of which would be triggered by ultimately the grant of planning permission. The question of whether there is an obligation on anybody to build or operate a hotel is something which one would find in the lease. And we don't as yet have hard copies of the redacted draft lease, which would enable anyone to answer that question. So what my own friend and I have discussed and would propose is that we proceed on the basis of what we do have a hard copy of, leaving aside the question of whether there is an obligation on anybody to do anything under the lease until the hearing on conditions next week, which is when it really becomes a relevant issue anyway. So if that course commends itself to you, sir, that's how we would suggest we might proceed.
Thanks for that, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Steele, presumably you're happy with that?
I am indeed, sir. I hadn't realised there was any issue in relation to the lease. Therefore, we only got copies of the actual legal agreement, namely the missives. But I would not think it productive of time to wait further for copies of the hard copies of the lease. These are all appeal documents anyway.
Mr. McIntosh.
I appreciate why all this has happened. I have a question for this witness in respect of the definition of an international hotel, which could be answered by reference to the redacted lease that can be found in the exciting way that it is lodged. And therefore, if I'm to cross-examine this witness on that point, I'm concerned that Mr. Steele and Mr. Thompson might not have in front of them the document that I found by following the link. It's a very short point, and it may not even be controversial, but I don't want to cause anyone else to be embarrassed. And equally, as I think you both know, it wasn't the intention of those I represent to be present at the hearing session, because we took a broad view that it was ultimately going to be a matter for the Council to express their views about conditions. I'd hate to have to turn up at the hearing session for an extra day because of these events. It would seem unnecessary. And so I don't quite know how we get round that.
Perhaps if you tried asking your question at the appropriate moment, and we'll see whether Mr. Thompson and or Mr. Steele object to that question.
I was going to say in advance, I'm perfectly happy that that question should be asked in due course. We'll all see the redacted lease, but I have absolute confidence in my learned friend basically sticking to the redacted text.
Thanks, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Steele.
So I have no difficulty with it either. Apart from anything else, we can get the redacted copy up on screen here.
Perfect. Happy with that, Mr. McIntosh?
Whether the witness can answer it or not is another matter, and whether it might be best to left to another time in another place. But I'll let my learned friend, Mr. McIntosh, decide that.
Okay. Mr. Innes.
I've literally just been handed the document, and I would like the opportunity to very briefly read it before so that I can follow the cross-examination and the examination. I literally haven't seen it before.
How long do you need?
Probably about 4 minutes.
Okay. Let's, you can indicate when you're ready for us to start.
So it may even be, if I lead the evidence on the matter, it might assist Mr Innes, because the points are short, sharp and brief. And I would stress in any event, this has been an appeal document for quite some period of time, whatever the relevant date was. Not that I want Mr Innes to be in any way disadvantaged, of course.
I'm not so sure about it being an appeal document. It would be our practice not to accept links to appeal documents, and I suspect that's been missed. And if that had been seen in our office, hard or electronic copies of the actual documents would have been requested.
Actually, can I just double-check that this document, the redacted lease, the 3 parts, is physically present in the appellant's papers for the witness? Because if I'm going to ask a very short question, I'd like him to have it in front of him. And before we go any further, we should just physically check that Mr Sorrell has, in that AHSS document, the attached printed-out copies. It would be embarrassing if he didn't, since, as Mr Steele says, it's an appeal document.
We do not have it in hard copy. That's why we've sent for them from the office. And we didn't bring the lease because we didn't realise that was relevant.
Mr Innes will indicate when he's ready for us to start. Mr Innes, you're ready? Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Mr Steele, would you like to continue? And can we have copies of what's been circulated?
Can I firstly just confirm that Mr Jones has got a copy of what's been circulated? No. This is not going smoothly at all, I have to say, for a simple point. Mr Jones, are you with us now? Have you got it now? Could I just ask you to turn to page 2? This is the missives, or part of the missives, in relation to this transaction. Could you go to page 2, and towards the bottom, do you see in bold the desired content?
I do.
And could you firstly just read out the definition of the desired content?
Yeah. Desired content in relation to the development means that it will comprise not less than 120 bedrooms, or such greater number as may be notified to CEC by DHP under clause 3.4, together with publicly accessible art space, restaurant, bar and leisure space, parking, and if to the extent desired by DHP, and any other facilities.
Could you then go down to, please, to development, and tell us what the definition of the development within these missives is, please?
Yeah. Development means the change of use and development of the site by partial demolition of the buildings, and the alteration and adaptation of the remaining buildings and the construction of new structures, all in accordance with the proposals, so as to provide a high-quality hotel which may be licensed, of international standing, but not for the avoidance of doubt a budget hotel or similar of the desired content.
And if you could turn to page 4 and the second bottom definition, proposals, and could you read that out, please?
Proposals means DHP's proposals for the development of the site and the conversion of the buildings to provide a high-quality hotel of international standing, but not, for the avoidance of doubt, a budget hotel or similar of the desired content.
Now, Mr. Jones, firstly, I think you do not have formal legal qualifications, is that correct?
I don't know.
However, are you experienced in looking at contracts of this type in your professional life?
I am.
Yeah. Does that, these matters taken together, seem to you to give comfort or not that there will indeed be an international hotel of luxury standard in terms of this agreement?
It does.
From your perspective, have you ever seen an agreement that actually requires or defines the matter in quite that way, or is this highly unusual?
There are certainly use definitions in most leases, but this goes beyond what I would describe as being the usual wording to be more definitive.
And do you think that that should or should not give sufficient comfort as to what the end product will be if planning permission is given, if this is legally valid as we understand it is?
I do.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, hello again. Are you aware that you're not looking at a lease?
I'm aware that I'm looking at an agreement, but it's not a lease, yeah.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. McIntosh.
Yes. Let's start with something other than this document first. Could you please have to hand your document, I think it's CD 206.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go into this report in a huge amount of detail. I'd like you, please, to turn to page 28. And this is your document.
It is, yeah.
So within the table you produced called Proposed Development Mix,
Yeah.
you've considered various different uses, and these are some of your observations on what those might be into almost a definitional table, this.
I wouldn't say it's a definitional table. I say it's the process that we've undertaken here is to start building models around alternative uses. And we've considered a number of uses for the site, and we've had to take a fairly broad brush approach to how those are defined, and then creating a notional building that fits onto the site for the alternative use assessment. So is it a definition? No. Is it a broad brush approach to the types of uses envisaged? Yes.
I think I was just too precise. I think I'm very happy with that explanation. In the definition for hotel, in the text for hotel, left-hand column at the NB, you've got the five-star hotel, which presumably is the scenario being investigated here, is similar to the world-class hotel proposed for the site. Are you content that that's a broad brush statement? Right. Okay. Now, let's go back to this document you've just been given. Before we go, let's just check a few things here. You've been given this document today.
This document just now, yes.
Yeah. And ignoring the issue of redactions for a moment, this is the first time you've seen, quote, the whole thing, close quote.
Yes.
And you were shown part of it by Mr. Hare.
I've had discussions with Mr. Hare around the operation. I've known for Rose. It's going to be a Rosewood Hotel for some time. and that set the context for the alternative uses. But yes, I mean, essentially.
I want a yes or no answer. Have you been shown part of this document before by Mr. Hare?
I've seen part of this document.
Right. Which
before,
part?
Yes. I've seen the 2 pages that were handed to me this morning. I've seen other aspects of it historically, but I couldn't tell you which part in detail.
Are you content with this statement of broad brush policy, which I was taught as a trainee solicitor at Dundas and Wilson 20 years ago, which is you can't analyse a contract until you see the whole document?
I agree with that, absolutely. However, my job on this was not to analyse the contract. My job was to set up a model that could be analysed.
If you go back to your precognition, if that was your job, why was it necessary for you to make the statement 2.42 that the CEC has stipulated the use of the site as a hotel of international standing? Any variation from this use would require a formal lease variation, without which development could not be undertaken, as this would breach the lease conditions. Is that not really relevant to the task you've been given?
It is, because then we'd start to provide some qualitative analysis around the quantitative assessments.
Now, to return to the document that you were shown, I want to be clear. Mr. Steele asked you whether use the word luxury in one of his questions, and you acceded to that. Now, I don't see the word luxury in the definition of development or desired content in this document. Am I right?
You're correct.
Now, there is another document which we haven't got paper copies of, which is a draft lease. Have you seen any part of that?
No.
No. Just focusing on some broad brush things we can draw from the parts of this we can see. You'd accept that a ground lease or missives are not planning conditions?
Yes.
And in fact, they're in a different class of their own. These are commercial documents between the council as a custodian of public assets and someone, in very broad terms, they are selling that asset to. I know it's not a sale, but they're passing that asset to someone else in return for value for the council taxpayers of Edinburgh.
It's an agreement between a landlord and a tenant. The council is a landlord and the development is a tenant. Is that...
Exactly. And to the extent, you might not agree with me this fully, but even if part of this is true, it will be of interest. To some extent, when the council is transacting with people about the use of its land and receiving consideration, to some extent it's no different from any other landowner that does that, isn't it?
That is correct.
And if the council, I mean, how much involvement do you have with Scottish local authorities in part of your career?
I act for a variety of, well, I'm acting for City of Edinburgh Council on various projects at the moment. I've acted for Scottish Government as landholders and various other public sector authorities as landowners.
So you're familiar with the concept of best value?
I am.
And it's a hard to pin down concept. Do you accept that?
Yes.
It can be slightly aggravating, in fact, to deal with.
It can be complicated and complex.
But part of it is an obligation to achieve appropriate financial returns from assets.
Part of it is, yes.
And in fact, there's a balancing exercise built in best value about what you get for doing something with an asset.
It's not necessarily just financially driven.
Would you accept that if the council was asked to vary any of these lease conditions or missive conditions, what the factor in its mind would primarily be best value and not planning decisions?
No, I think if there is a change of use or there's a change of concept, there will always be a planning requirement. So that doesn't necessarily...
I think I phrased my question inelegantly the second time this morning, so I'll try better this time. Clearly, let's make a completely hypothetical example because it can be easier. Let's imagine the council leased a property and to build an office block. And the developers happily building an office block. At some point down the track, they think, oh gosh, this isn't working. Let's have student housing. So they go back to the council and they say, we want to change for student housing. Now, they've got to get planning permission potentially for that. That's
Correct.
one issue. But in terms of their relationship with the council as their landlord, the council as their landlord and the economic development financial side of the council is considering effectively best value as a primary driver for whether they're going to agree. And they may well want some money. I mean, you don't know, but they might do, they might not.
They might do, they might not, but that's within that definition of best value. You're not necessarily just looking at the financial consideration. There are a wide ranging of economic benefits. So, for instance, at the moment in the city, there are discussions going on about the loss of office space. If the council owns an office site, does it necessarily deliver a non-office use? There are drivers behind that. I'm not saying they're yes or no.
No, but what they aren't is a pure, if we can have such a thing, a pure planning decision. This is a complex decision by the council as civic custodians of land that has to be made at some point and is often made by the council.
Yes.
Now, you've received information from Mr. Hare, but you appreciate that he's not a witness and we can't ask him questions about that.
Yes.
I'm just going to check I haven't missed anything because there have been so many changes to this topic. Bear with me for a moment. So the final question, and please tell me if you don't feel it's within your competence as a surveyor to answer. But would you go along with what I would say is the broad brush of the evidence we've already had from Mr. Finney and Mr. Kett, that it is possible to have a discussion about the difference between a 5-star and a 6-star, or a 5-star or a luxury hotel, and people who know what they're talking about can come to views, there may be different views about that, but it's not possible to have a black and white definition of a luxury hotel 6-star of international standing. That is not a term you can define in black and white.
It would appear that way. Certainly from what I've heard from previous evidence, there is.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope we managed to get through that without causing too much excitement. Thank you.
Mr. Innes.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Just in terms of splits, Mr. Collins was due to give evidence at the previous session of the inquiry, and he dealt with other proposals. Was it decided that there would be a split between evidence in that respect, and I don't need to go to matters which Mr. Collins has dealt with?
Sorry, a split in evidence in what sense?
Well, in the sense of he has dealt with the alternative proposal, as it were.
That is his. I mean, he is an educational specialist.
Thank you. Insofar as you were asked to carry out the exercise you did, were you given, why do we have Section 2 of your report, APP 50 in at all?
So this, bear with me a second. With reference to the proposed schemes?
Yes.
Because I think it gives a base by which I can then start to benchmark the alternative uses. The drivers for development are to have a scheme that is profitable. And I'm merely starting in here with the basis that there is a proposal. That proposal has been taken through a competitive situation. And as far as I'm aware, and I haven't seen all the documents behind this, that scheme is still viable. The second aspect of that is there are limitations within that considered as a viable alternative use on the site.
And as far as Section 2 is concerned, how did you derive the information?
Through an interview with Duddingston House Properties.
And where did that take place and when?
It took place in their offices and over the phone before this report was published, but it would have been sometime June-ish, July. Of this year? Of this year, yes.
Insofar as you don't mention any other parties, well, you mention DHP, RH, which is Rosewood, and UH, which is Urbanist Hotels. Is there any reason why you haven't mentioned Carlton Hill Hotel LP, which is the party that actually has the missives?
Because all I was trying to do in here was set the tone by which everything else is benchmarked. I'm not reporting on here on the intricacies of the various legal agreements.
Yeah. And who were you formally instructed by?
I was originally instructed by DHP and I'm now jointly instructed by DHP and UH.
Yeah, but you're not instructed by Carlton Hill Hotel LP?
No.
No. Okay. Paragraph 2.5, you state that Rosewood Hotels and UH remain committed to the project. How did you ascertain that particular fact?
That's come out through the conversations that I've had with both, well, primarily DHP and UH.
Okay. If you could move over the page at 2.7. Again, how did you gain the information that's contained in 2.7?
Again, through the same interviews.
So it was verbal description by other parties, is that correct?
Verbal description by other parties, yeah.
But in paragraph 1 you say not all uses can be developed under this is particularly affects residential development, where as far as you're aware there is no known existing situations in Scotland. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Does that arise from the fact that there is actually legislation which deals with this matter under the Land Tenure Reform Scotland Act 1974, which is a condition of every long lease that's subject to the Act, no part of the property which is subject to the lease shall be used as or part of a private dwelling house?
It was more to do actually with the general mortgageability of residential properties.
Yeah. In essence, Scots law does not want to see the introduction of leasehold into Scots law. That's part of and equally what we're talking about here in long leases, those are leases in excess of 20 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And once you get over that period of 20 years, you're able to register that lease in the land register, and it therefore becomes a real right, is that correct?
So I believe.
Yeah. And insofar as Section 2 is concerned, you said you were shown a document at, when you were visiting Mr. Duddingston House. Is that correct?
I've seen extracts of the document, yes.
Which document?
The missive document. I now have a copy, the redacted document in front of me.
Yeah. And insofar as, do you know which version of the document was shown when you went out to see?
No, I don't.
And do you know that there are different versions and that the missives have subsequently been amended? Are you aware of that? No.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not aware of that.
In terms of your precognition, paragraph 8.9, you reach a conclusion that the scheme DHP/UH was not appraised, but given it's being progressed as a private enterprise, must be considered economically viable.
Yes.
And would you agree that ultimate viability of any project comes at the critical time of when the investment decision is taken and the economic circumstances that prevail at that particular time?
Yes, although you would start that significantly earlier and within the context.
I'm afraid we've lost your microphone again.
So, yes, within the sense that because there is a planning journey to take, your commitment from individual parties starts significantly earlier than an agreed lease, an agreed funding.
And insofar as ultimate viability is concerned, it will be related to specific project cost and economic circumstances that pertain at the time.
Correct.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hind.
Sorry.
Mr. Steele.
No re-examination. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
Okay.
That's you. Finished. Thank you.
Now, that's just about 12:30. Does anyone feel strongly that we shouldn't just break for lunch now before taking Mr Mappin. Could Mr Mappin reasonably be concluded by 1 o'clock?
Sir, if it assists, we have intended and do intend to take Mr Mappin's precognition as read, so that won't take terribly long. I understand others may be relatively brief.
Mr Thompson?
No very strong views on the matter, sir.
Do you have much for Mr Mappin?
No.
Yeah. Mr McIntosh, do you have much?
I think I have less than I thought I did.
Okay. Mr Innes?
Extremely limited, if at all. So
Okay.
I think Mr Mappin could be through by lunch. If,
Okay, let's take Mr Mappin now.
Excellent. Mr Mappin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back, obviously. Copies of your second precognition for the second inquiry session have been lodged. I propose, with the agreement of the reporters, to take this entirely as read, and I have no further additional questions for you, Mr Mappin. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Thompson?
Hello again, Mr Mappin. I just have one question for you. Do you believe that operator identity is a material consideration in the determination of commercial applications for planning permission?
It isn't without precedent that it's been relevant, and I'm aware of personal planning permissions being granted. I would have thought it was the physical characteristics that were particularly important, and they certainly would be relevant in my view.
So the short answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr Thompson. Mr McIntosh?
Thank you. I wonder if we could start in your precognition at paragraph 1.16. So without going over old ground about wheelie bins from last 2 weeks ago, I'm going to sort of sum something up and see if you'll just accept it, because you might do. You obviously know something about Rosewood's requirements, and you've told us a lot of what you know in both written form and in answer to questions. And you've been told that Rosewood have made a commitment, and we have letters from Rosewood. And we have Mr Finney's evidence. But you would accept that, in a sense, that's as far as it goes, because we can't ask them questions about the extent of the art strategy, just to pick one topic. Would you accept that broadly as a basis?
I appreciate they're not here to specifically answer questions, and that's not unusual in my experience for the operator not to be directly involved.
No, I can understand that, and I'm not sure I necessarily disagree with that. But if we just roll it back down the tree, again, without getting into anything too exciting, you would accept that there are at least 5 economic entities involved in this transaction, one of which is Rosewood, DHP, Urbanist, Carlton Hill Hotel B, and something involving Oak Tree, and I don't really mind. And you accept that they're all involved.
To the extent of my own understanding, what I've heard, yes.
So, to return to what you asked about, Mr Thompson, a personal condition. Which person? Who would it be who would get the personal condition if a personal condition was involved in this case?
I don't think I was necessarily inviting that. I think the question was more in general terms. I'm conscious this might be discussed at the hearing session. I hadn't considered that in any detail. If it was in relation to an operator, then it would be in the name of that operator.
But you'd accept, I hope, that if it was any of those 5 organisations, there's been no opportunity for the reporters and through them the Scottish ministers, to take a view, with the benefit of cross-examination or questions from them, about that entity and its, I hesitate to say, its, I mean credibility in the traditional sense, its likely, reliability is that what I don't mean credibility, I mean reliability. Its reliability to do what it says it would do. We haven't got that, have we?
All I can speak to is the information and intelligence I have from being involved in the project. And I have confidence in what my understanding of the project is and who's involved in it, including Rosewood as the operator, not in relation to what it might not be. If that makes any sense. But so it's insofar as I think we've heard from others and in the evidence, I think there's enough information in front of the reporters to take confidence about who's involved, including Rosewood.
Yeah, I can deal with that in submissions. I will. That's fine. So, just want to return to some evidence we've had today. So, would you accept that, given the way that the preconditions work, from my position looking outside, the person who tells me that what I need to know about how the various transactions work was Mr. Finney? He's the man who has looked at everything and gives us his man of skills opinion on whether things are likely to come to pass. Would you accept that he's the witness?
I think Mr. Finney said that in relation to being able to provide you with an overview of all those matters, yes. Now,
you may recollect that whilst you were giving evidence in session 1, you were asked a question about who the partners were of Carlton Hotel LP. And my recollection is that you confirmed it was the appellants. Are you, having heard... I think,
in fairness, what the witness said is to the best of his understanding.
Well, absolutely. Are you, in the benefit of having had some more understanding from Mr. Finney, able to contradict Mr. Finney, or would you defer to Mr. Finney's understanding?
I said at the time that was my understanding, but I've heard what Mr. Finney said and would defer to what information he gave you, yes.
Thank you. Now, the final thing I want to look at with you is an aspect of the local plan which you've mentioned in your precondition, and that's EMP 10, which can be found in CD 453 at page 113. And there'll be a race between me and Mr. Sorrell to see if my IT can work as fast as he can move. You could turn to page 113. I suspect you're probably familiar with this plan.
Sorry, Ms. Mackers, what was the policy number you said?
EMP 10, please.
10. Sorry, yes, 113. You've got that.
Now, I'm going to set this up so I don't want you to think I'm saying more than I'm saying. I absolutely accept that there are many documents, and they are lodged in process, some of which are produced by the council and some of which are produced by trade organisations, advocating for more hotel provision of various classes. I absolutely accept that. But this particular planning policy, whilst it does give indication of where hotel development will be permitted, doesn't address the idea that what we really, really, really need is a 6- or 7-star hotel of international standing. Would you accept that?
The wording of the policy isn't that specific, no.
Thank you. I'll just check my notes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mappin.
Thank you. Mr. Innes.
Yes. A couple of very brief matters, Mr. Mappin. You're an experienced planning consultant and have dealt with a range of developers and opportunities throughout a lengthy career.
Yes, longer than I'd like to think about sometimes now. Thank you.
And insofar as that experience you have, would you say a personal planning permission is firstly highly unusual?
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And equally, no doubt, you've had to advise clients that might potentially purchase assets and consider the planning issues associated with such a purchase.
Just to clarify, in relation to where that purchase would involve a planning permission with a personal consent or advising generally? Yes, advising generally, yes.
And if one came across a personal planning permission, one of the advice that you'd have to give is that the party had the benefit of that. In order to change it, further permissions would be required. Is that correct?
If they needed to change away from the named personal party, yes.
And equally, if that particular development or the transaction involved financing, that a bank or other financial institution might view a personal planning permission with some degree of caution. Would that be fair?
Well, the extent of my professional knowledge would be to raise that as a matter for the clients to consider. I'm afraid I couldn't go any further than second-guessing what the funding implications would be.
Okay. But it would be a significant and material matter that you would report on to the clients.
That's correct. And
that they should consider carefully the fundability of that particular permission.
Well, as I say, that would be the reason I would raise it in the first instance.
Thank you. And just one last matter. Just want to... Both the environmental statements in relation to Scheme 1 and Scheme 2, the socio-economic issues were essentially scoped out or were not included in the assessment. Is that correct?
I might have to check that, Mr. Innes, but I think that's likely, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Innes. Just one question of clarification, really, on this. Our recollection is that the additional conditions, and we'll come to this next week, no doubt, but the additional conditions proposed by the appellants don't include a personal condition. Is that right? It was all around the operation of the hotel.
Yes, I think that was the reasoning behind my response to Mr. Thompson, talking about physical characteristics of the building in this case, or a building in another case.
Okay, thanks for that. Mr. Steele.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mappin, just to confirm, we are not actually asking for or suggesting a personal consent here, are we?
No, we're not.
No. That was merely a general answer you gave to Mr. Thompson about in relation to his particular question. Is that correct?
That was my understanding of it. It was a general matter being raised, yes.
Fine. Thank you. No further questions.
Thanks, Mr. Muppin. Thanks all for that great burst of progress after lunchtime. Someone must be hungry. Okay, let's break for lunch now. We'll resume at 1:40 when we'll be hearing from the council's first witness, Mr. Drummond.
Mr. Drummond, indeed, sir.
Perfect. Thanks for that. 1:40. Witnesses for inquiry session 2. Before we do that, can I ask either the appellants or the council or both to submit those documents that make up CD 650 to our office electronically so that we can get them published on our website and we can see them in full? I think there might be 8 documents or so behind those links. Perfect. The appellants are going to do that. Thanks for that.
I'm hugely relieved.
I wasn't asking you personally. Mr. Thompson, your witness.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mr. Drummond, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I hope you have your precognition and your inquiry report at CEC 9 to hand.
Yes.
And could I ask you, please, to simply to read your precognition starting at 1.1?
Of course. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Kyle Drummond, Senior Economic Development Officer with the City of Edinburgh Council. I am a witness for the Council in respect of the assessment of the economic impact of the 2015 and 2017 proposals. Since 2014, the Council's Economic Development Service has provided the Planning Service with feedback on the economic impact of selected planning applications as a non-statutory consultee. I prepared the feedback on the 2015 and 2017 applications on behalf of the Service. Scope of evidence.
I think we would probably skip the scope and what it's going to demonstrate and just go on to the meat of it at paragraph 3, please.
Of course. First, the economic impact of the site, the as-is, the do-nothing case. And this is relating to topic 1. The site in question has largely been mothballed since 2010, with only the former gate lodge still in use. The site therefore presently directly supports only a negligible level of economic activity. It is not considered that there is any serious prospect of the site being brought back into productive use without significant investment and some degree of redevelopment, given the poor condition of the mothballed buildings and their general obsolescence. There have been multiple proposals for the adaptive reuse of the site, including the music school proposal, which currently holds planning consent. The EDS calculated that the proposed music school development could support 52 new jobs, and that's net, and £107 million of gross value added per annum in 2013 prices, also net. The context of the Edinburgh hotel market. From a property market perspective, the hotel market is among the strongest in Edinburgh, perhaps rivalled only by the student accommodation market. A tourism accommodation audit of Edinburgh prepared in 2012 projected that by 2021, Edinburgh would require approximately 6,000 to 9,000 additional bedrooms, of which 1,200 to 1,400 would be 4-star and 5-star hotel bedrooms. 545 additional 4-star hotel bedrooms were delivered in Edinburgh between 2012 and July 2018, with a further 614 4-star bedrooms under construction as of July 2018. This gives a total of 1,159 bedrooms. This suggests that the number of bedrooms delivered by 2021 is likely to fall slightly below the notional minimum requirement of 1,200 unless presently unprogrammed new developments commence in 2018-19, given lead-in times for hotel construction, implying there will be a small shortfall in the number of 4-star and 5-star bedrooms in Edinburgh as of 2021. Picking up on the evidence that we heard yesterday and during the cross-examination, just to add there that the point was raised in the cross-examination of Russell Kett about the applicant's paper acknowledging that in the first year of operation, I think it was 20% of the business would be new, though it was suggested that there would be additional new business resulting from people coming to Edinburgh specifically for this development. Economic impact assessment by Oxford Economics. As part of the feedback provided to the Planning Service on the 2015 and 2017 planning applications, the EDS reviewed the assessments of the economic impacts of the proposed development prepared by Oxford Economics. The EDS focused only on the projected impacts in the operational phase, as these reflect the enduring impacts of the development. It is noted that the Oxford Economics report does not provide the raw data used or set out the models used by Oxford Economics in full detail, meaning the EDS was unable to verify Oxford Economics' conclusions by replicating their methodology. We are therefore unable to endorse the approach used to arrive at the figures, but only the figures themselves. Just to clarify that point, we are not specifically criticising the Oxford Economics methodology, just acknowledging that it's not possible for us to totally replicate their work, which means that we can only really comment on the figures they've arrived at, not how they've arrived at them. Moving on. Several of the figures used by Oxford Economics appear high. The hotel was expected in the 2015 scheme to directly support 260 jobs, headcount, which equates to 1.77 per bedroom. This compares to 1.62 jobs per bedroom for the Balmoral Hotel, which is already especially high. Gross domestic product per employee is estimated in the 2015 scheme to be £37,037 per annum, whereas the mean gross value added per employee for employees in the accommodation sector of Edinburgh was £27,033 as of 2015, i.e. employees in the hotel are expected to be around £10,000 more productive than the norm per annum. Just to add a point of clarification there, this isn't specifically relating to wages. It's a measure of productivity, which is really an economic statistic, and it just relates to the average value generated per employee. The hotel is in the 2015 scheme expected to support...
Sorry, just before you go, Rachel, does that include the the profit from the project?
Yeah, well, gross value added, I think, as was touched upon by Mr. Logan yesterday, it's a measure of value, and it's really a combination of operating profit and employee compensation. So it'll be a mix of the wages and other benefits paid to employees, but also the operating profit to the hotel. In itself, as a measure, it doesn't really tell us, how much of the money has been garnished in taxes, how much of the money is being paid out with dividends. It's really just a measure of the economic activity associated with the hotel, without really telling us where that money actually accrues. Okay. The hotel is in the 2015 scheme expected to support, and I've got 240 additional jobs, actually 360 additional jobs throughout Scotland via multiplier effects, 1.38 additional jobs per direct job. This compares to a national average multiplier effect for the accommodation sector of 0.25 additional jobs per direct jobs. Visitor expenditure is in the 2015 scheme expected to total £30.7 million per annum. It's estimated this would translate to around £715 per room per night. By comparison, overseas visitors in Edinburgh in 2016 spent an average £99 per night. Assuming an average of 2 guests per room, this would give a typical nightly expenditure per room for Edinburgh of £198. Guests staying in the proposed hotel are therefore assumed to spend over 3.6 times more per night than the average overseas visitor to Edinburgh. There are therefore multiple figures that are far higher than the ready reckoners used by the Economic Development Service. These could potentially be attributed to the hotel being of exceptionally high quality. However, this means there is a risk that if the hotel quality should ever decline, the economic impacts would also decline. The direct economic benefits of the 2015 and 2017 schemes are relatively modest in the context of Edinburgh as a whole, particularly given the large footprint of the site. For example, the Atria 1 office development on Morrison Street occupies a site less than half the site of the development in question, but with a net internal area of 17,281 square metres could, based on a mean employment density for professional service offices of 1 full-time equivalent employee per 12 square metres, be expected to directly support approximately 1,440 full-time equivalent jobs, if fully occupied, compared to 260 headcount jobs directly supported by the 2015 scheme. Office jobs also typically pay higher wages and are more productive in terms of economic output per employee than hotel jobs. The Oxford Economics Report, which as noted may potentially overstate the impacts of the development, suggests that the total number of jobs the 2015 scheme could support when multiplier effects and the impact of visitor expenditure are accounted for is 840 headcount, significantly less than the number of full-time equivalent employees that could be directly employed in a building the scale of Atria 1. Again, that's if it's fully occupied. The development as proposed is therefore not considered to be of a strategically significant scale in the context of the city's economy. A supplementary paper produced by Oxford Economics in May of this year seeks to assess the net economic impacts of the 2015 and 2017 schemes. The figures quoted in the paper differ from those in the 2 prior papers, making direct comparison challenging. In the year 2022, the 2015 scheme is projected to result in 210 job losses, a 22.5% displacement rate, and the 2017 scheme and 160 job losses at a 20% displacement rate. These are relatively large differences, i.e. 50 jobs stemming from a relatively small difference of 20 bedrooms. It's not anticipated that a relatively minor difference in bedroom numbers would have such a major impact on displacement. It is noted that the figures in question have been updated since my inquiry report was prepared, and that relates to some different figures. Displacement is projected to fall from either 160 or 210 jobs in 2022 to 0 jobs in 2023. This massive fluctuation between years, which is attributed to demand growth offsetting displacement impacts, is not thought to be realistic. If demand did not grow as projected between 2022 and 2023, displacement could be expected to remain at this level. Just also in addition there, the assumption that displacement will fall off in 2023 is based on the assumption that the supply of hotel bedrooms will not increase after 2022, so there will be no new addition to the stock. If the supply of hotel bedrooms was to continue to increase after 2022, we could expect to see more displacement as the supply would be keeping track with the increase in demand. It is considered that there would be some level of displacement associated with the 2015-2017 schemes. The Council has not attempted to identify a specific figure, but in light of the factors set out in the Scottish Government's draft advice on net economic impact and net economic benefit and planning, and given the strength of the hotel market in Edinburgh and the 6-star status of the proposed hotel, the levels of 20% to 22.5% quoted for 2022 do not seem that unreasonable. 0% displacement, though, is thought to be unlikely. Should the calibre of the hotel be lower than currently proposed, this assumption would need to be revisited. And again, just to add, we'd heard yesterday the assumption that is set out in Mr. Kett's paper that the hotel would compete away. 80% of the business of the hotel would come from competition, though the appellant has noted that they would expect this to be compensated for by more people coming to Edinburgh and by the overall tone of the market improving. Potential wider impacts. The 2015 and 2017 schemes could be expected to draw more footfall east of Waterloo Place, reducing the degree to which Regent Road is presently poorly used compared to other central streets. It is challenging to quantify the extent to which the developments as proposed could be expected to imperil the city's World Heritage Site status. As the site is not accessible to the public, it is not presently experienced by visitors to Edinburgh in the same way as other historic buildings such as Edinburgh Castle and St Giles's Cathedral, which occupy key locations and major tourist thoroughfares and are open to the public. Therefore, the role of the site in relation to Edinburgh's visitor economy is primarily as a feature of the city's landscape and an element within the wider set piece of Calton Hill. There is a risk to the city's World Heritage Site status of leaving the site fallow, given that 5 buildings within the site are already classed as being at risk, 2 of them at high risk, and the site overall is visibly deteriorating. However, it is recognised that should the development proceed, the risk of Edinburgh losing its World Heritage Site status, however small that risk is, could only be expected to increase, and that the loss of World Heritage Site status could in turn only be expected to be detrimental to tourism. Large hotel closures in Edinburgh are exceptionally rare, and 2 of the 4 existing full-service hotels in Edinburgh, and just to clarify, that's the Balmoral, the Sheraton, the Caledonian Hilton, and the what was the Missoni and is now the Radisson Corvus, have operated continuously in the same building for more than a century. Any economic impacts, any economic benefits associated with the operation of the building as a hotel could therefore reasonably be expected to persist for a long period of time, with the proviso that any reduction in the quality of the hotel could in turn be expected to translate to a reduction in the economic impact. Commentary on appellant's inquiry reports. In terms of paragraph 27 of Mr Andrew Logan's inquiry report, I would consider a more authoritative source in employment statistics for Edinburgh to be the Office for National Statistics Business Register and Employment Survey, which reports 327,000 employees in Edinburgh as of 2016. And this is more than 57,000 more than the equivalent figure quoted by the Annual Population Survey. The Business Register Employment Survey is a survey of employers aimed specifically at measuring jobs, whereas the Annual Population Survey is based on individuals and covers a wider range of topics. Conclusions. The site in question currently has a negligible economic impact in terms of employment and gross value added directly arising from economic activity carried out on the site. There is not considered to be any serious prospect of bringing the site back into productive use without some degree of redevelopment. The total projected gross jobs resulting from the development, 840 in Edinburgh or 940 in Scotland for the 2015 scheme, and 810 in Edinburgh or 900 in Scotland for the 2017 scheme, are based on several assumptions that appear exceptionally high when compared to ready reckoners. If these high figures are the result of the 6-star status of the scheme, there is in turn a risk that the economic impact will be lessened if the hotel quality is not achieved or is achieved and subsequently falls. Even if taken at face value, and even setting aside the impact of displacement, the economic impacts of development are not considered to be of a strategically significant scale in a city context when compared to our developments. For example, the HA1 office development, which occupies a site less than half the site of the site in question, but could be expected to directly support over 5 times more jobs than the hotel is expected to directly support. The projected economic impacts of the development are greater than the impacts of leaving the site largely disused, or the projected impacts of redeveloping the site as a music school. The figures quoted by the appellants are gross. The strength of the hotel market in Edinburgh and the quality of the that the displacement levels of 20% to 22.5% suggested by Oxford Economics do not seem unreasonable. However, the displacement level of 0% projected by Oxford Economics for 2023 onwards is thought to be unlikely. These assumptions are based on the 6-star status of the proposed hotel, and any reduction in the quality of the hotel would require this assumption to be revisited. Net figures provided by the applicant are not considered by the EDS to be robust, given the large differences in displacement over time and between the two schemes. The impacts of development could reasonably be expected to persist for a long period of time. The likelihood of the city's visitor economy being adversely affected by the aesthetic implications of the development are considered to be low. However, it is accepted that development as proposed could potentially increase the likelihood of Edinburgh losing its World Heritage Site status, and that the impact of this on the city's visitor economy could in itself only be expected to be negative. And finally, the development could be expected to draw more footfall eastward of Waterloo Place, helping animate an underutilised part of the city centre.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond. Thank you, Seth.
Mr. Steele.
Mr. Drummond, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You are the Economic Development Officer from Edinburgh Council. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
And as I understand the position, the Planning Department would consult with your department in relation to economic issues, firstly. Is that correct?
On selected developments at their discretion, yes.
And in particular in relation to this one, that's what they did?
This one, yes.
And they rely on the input from the Economic Development Department in formulating their planning assessment in relation to any particular proposal?
Yeah, well, essentially the Economic Development Service provides information which planning would then use as part of their overall determination.
That is because the Planning Department are not economists, your department is?
Effectively, yes.
Now, could I just look, please, at paragraph 3.2 of your precognition?
Yes, sir.
You're talking there about the music school. Are these net additional jobs, bearing in mind that the music school is moving from, is it west to east or east to west, according to their proposal? Are these new additional jobs, and do they take account of the jobs that are already there?
No, these are net additional jobs, so they are that is an increase, 52 new jobs, which is on top of the existing number of jobs supported by the hotel, by the music school, sorry, which I believe is in the region of 100. So that was basically as the application provided by the music school quoted them as net additional jobs.
So it's 50 or 52 to be precise, and $1 million or so of gross value added.
Yes, sir.
And whatever is the precise figure from our proposal, it is many times that might come from the music school. Is that so?
Yes, absolutely.
We can all do the arithmetic ourselves, but it's 5 to 10 times as many is the economic job advantage.
Yes.
So if one is comparing and contrasting the economics, our proposal wins hand over fist, doesn't it?
Yeah, if comparing them purely on a jobs basis, the hotel is certainly a higher figure.
Now, could I ask you please to look at document CD 300?
Thank you very much.
And am I right in thinking, Mr. Drummond, that this is a document written by you?
Yes.
And can we agree that that represented your professional opinion at that time and continues to represent your professional opinion now?
In light of the evidence I had at the time, yes, that would be my opinion at the time.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to take you through this a little bit, if I may, Mr. Drummond. At the second paragraph, do we see there that you set out that the site was one of the Edinburgh 12 initiatives to assist with the progression of developments on strategic gap sites with the within Edinburgh City Centre? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if I turn to page 2, in the second paragraph, that there sets out your professional judgment as to the state of the building and also the cost to the council at that time. Is that so?
Well, those figures would be provided by professionals within the council. I'm not a surveyor. I haven't personally inspected the building from a maintenance standpoint, but that's certainly the information I was provided with at the time, and I've no reason to believe it's inaccurate.
No, absolutely. Because what you say there is that the building is a state of dilapidation and erosion of the stonework and vegetation growth and so on and so forth. It's a bit of a sad tale that's been told there by you on the advice of others. Is that correct?
It certainly represents that the building is in need of some investment.
And at the time, the council was spending £250,000 per annum, which I dare say has increased with the passage of time. Would that be fair?
It's certainly the figure that's been quoted to me. I haven't seen actual accounts for it, but that's certainly the figure that is still quoted.
Yes. And you also advised that buildings 1 to 6 were not currently fit for occupation due to their condition. Is that also correct?
Well, again, that's relying on the representations of what is now Cushman & Wakefield, DTZ, who had advised that. Again, I have no reason to assume that was not correct.
I think we can agree that that information would be correct, given the source that it came from. Would that be fair, Mr Drummond?
Well, again, I have no reason to question it, and Cushman & Wakefield's a reputable firm, so I would tend to accept what their professional judgment is.
Now, if we go to the next paragraph, could you read out the sentence from the retail and leisure offering to the end of that paragraph, please?
Of course. The retail and leisure offering of the city centre to the east of Princes Street is sporadic, with major breaks in the active frontage at Regent's Bridge and the Old Carlton Road burial ground wall. At present, the offering comes to an abrupt end at Howie's restaurant at the eastern extent of Waterloo Place, with no clear demarcation of the end of the city centre and nothing to draw footfall onward.
Is it fair to deduce from this that you, from an economic point of view, would prefer to see the footfall being drawn further east?
Yes, that's fair to say.
And that would be an advantage, a further advantage of our proposal, wouldn't it?
Inasmuch as the development would draw footfall to the east of Waterloo Place, which I think any public-facing use would certainly draw more footfall than what's presently there.
And that would be an advantage of our proposal?
Oh, yeah, clearly.
Yeah, thank you. You then continue that buildings 1 to 6 are vacant and do not directly support any jobs at present, etc. The prospects for bringing the remaining 6 buildings back into use without major alterations are unclear. Was that also your position?
Again, that would be drawing upon advice from surveyors and others within the council, but it was essentially the evidence that had been presented to me was that the buildings were off their time and not really lending themselves to use in their current format.
Thank you. Now, you then continue to consider the question of office space at the bottom of that page and the top of the next page. But could I just ask you in brief, what did you conclude in the relation to use as offices?
The general conclusion is that where it used as an office space, then it could generate a significant number of jobs. However, it would be challenging to put it to that purpose because of the specifications of occupiers and also the location of the building. So that would probably be contingent on it being leased out on a heavily discounted basis.
Taking matters as briefly as I can, did you not, as good as discount office use for the reasons that you set out there, open plan floor plates and energy efficiency and location?
I think as noted in the report, occupier interest would be likely be contingent on quoting heavily discounted rents. So there would be someone who would take the space, but it wouldn't be a prime or possibly not a commercial opportunity.
And in any event, would office space be continued? Would it be consistent with the council's other requirements to have public access?
That would, I suppose, it would depend on the nature of the space. But if it was purely an office building that was not close to the public, then certainly that would not be compatible.
Well, could you just read out the sentence, the second paragraph from the 5th line at the top of the page, what you actually say about that or said about that at the time, please, Mr Drummond.
It is noted that the use of the former Royal High School as either a secondary school or as office accommodation is unlikely to be compatible with regular public access to the complex.
So these are factors that would count against either a school or an office, are they not?
If the aspiration was to deliver public access, then that would certainly make it more challenging.
And is it not an aspiration of the Council to deliver public access, or do you not know that?
I would anticipate it is, but I can't really speak for the Council on that point.
Right. Can we go down further in this page, please? Class 7 hotels and hostels. And the second paragraph, do we there see your statement that the applicant is bound by an agreement with the Council to deliver a minimum of 120 bedrooms? And could you just read out the next few lines of your report, please?
Of course. There are 4 existing full-service luxury hotels in Edinburgh. The Sheraton Grand, 269 bedrooms. The Caledonian Waldorf Astoria, 241 bedrooms. The Balmoral, 188 bedrooms. And the G&V Royal Mile Hotel, 136 bedrooms. 147 bedrooms is therefore of below-average size for a hotel of this calibre in Edinburgh. The developer states that a 147-bedroom hotel will deliver a 15% return on investment, whereas a 127-bedroom hotel would deliver only 8%, the latter amounting to an unattractive investment prospect.
And having set that out, do you then conclude that there's a recognised need for additional high-quality visitor accommodation in Edinburgh?
I think in reference to the figures quoted in the accommodation audit, which is the most robust source of data we have on projected forecast demand, at that point it indicates, and it continues to indicate, there is a gap in the market for more space.
Indeed. Is that a further factor in favour of our proposal?
I would say rather, yeah, it's not a factor. It's certainly not saying that the market's saturated.
No, it says quite the opposite, does it not, Mr Drummond? Can we agree that that's a further factor in favour of our proposal?
Well, we can certainly say that if the hotel was delivered, it would help address the shortage of demand.
Thank you.
Shortage of supply, sorry.
Now, turning to the next page under the heading Overall Impact, you set out a resume of what Oxford Economics have said, but could you just read out the last sentence of that paragraph, please?
Yes. The methodology used by Oxford Economics has been reviewed as is considered to be robust.
So you had reviewed, or your department had reviewed, Oxford Economics proposals or their figures, is that so?
Yes.
And your professional judgment was that they were robust. Isn't that correct?
The gross impact at that time, we did not. There was nothing that gave us major concern to say that the figures they'd arrived at were inaccurate.
Yes, that's all very well, Mr. Drummond, but the precise wording you used is that it was your professional judgment that, and I quote, is considered to be robust. Is that not accurate?
That's certainly the statement.
Thank you. Can we turn to the top? Can we turn, please, to the top, Mr. Drummond, of the next page, where you're summarising the position. You say that the building, FRHS building, is currently dilapidated with significant damage to the buildings and exteriors and some damage to the interiors. That was your professional judgment.
Well, again, I'm not a surveyor. That would be relying on representations from other officers or other sources.
And did you conclude that the status quo, i.e. leaving it as it is, was not sustainable?
Yes.
And in the next bullet point, do you correctly identify that there have been a significant number of proposals for reuse, all of which have come to nothing?
Yes, that is correct.
And was it for that reason that the Council put out the European-wide tendering exercise to identify the best bidder to save the building?
I wasn't involved in that exercise, but yeah, I would assume that that was part of the intention.
Well, is that not exactly what you refer to and state in the next bullet point?
It certainly states that that's how the current proposal was arrived at, but yeah, it doesn't go. I don't tell exactly the motivations behind that tendering exercise.
Do you know overall how long that process took, Mr. Drummond?
I'm afraid I wasn't involved in that level of detail.
In relation to public access, do you, at the next bullet point, set out the advantages the hotel would have for public access, on the one hand, firstly?
Well, I think, as noted there, we think having it as a hotel could reasonably expected to support more public access than what are not typically non-public facing uses, such as office and school.
Yeah. And in particular, you say, but significantly more than might be reasonably be expected from a school, office or other non-public facing use.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if there was any question of any kind of competition between the hotel and the school in relation to public access, the hotel proposal would have the advantage.
I mean, it would obviously depend on the detail of the scheme, but speaking in broad categories, for various reasons, a school isn't generally something that the public encouraged to access. But again, the devil would be in the detail there.
But your judgment at the time was it would be significantly more in favour of the hotel than a school or office, wasn't it?
That would reasonably be expected, yes.
Thank you. Now, you then turn to other issues. Firstly, the Princess Street development brief for Block 12 identified Regent Road as being underutilised. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would this proposal address that issue?
Well, yes, as it's out there, it's considered that a full-scale hotel incorporating restaurants, a spa and other attractions is likely to generate this additional footfall. And
did you also identify that the area, Carlton Hill, Jenkins Ladder, etc., are prone to antisocial behaviour, and that the addition of the hotel would be an advantage in that regard? Yes, that is correct. And is it correct, within your knowledge, that the Lothian and Borders Police consultation identifies precisely that issue and is supportive of the hotel for precisely the same reasons? Are you aware of that? I'm not, I'm afraid. You then talk about, again, we'll not repeat it, the attractions of additional footfall. Do you then go on in your professional opinion, Mr Drummond, to confirm that not only the advantages that there are of this proposal in its own right, but it has the potential to be a catalyst for further investment in the surrounding area? Yes, that is correct. And that would be yet another factor in favour of this proposal, would it not? If the intention was to catalyse further investment, yes. Well, surely your department and you would be delighted to get further investment into the area, would you not? Well, I can't speak for the council in that extent, but I can imagine that would be favourable. Right. Well, what's your professional opinion? That would be an advantage, wouldn't it, if we act as a catalyst in this general area? Yes, clearly. Now, in relation to the tendering process European-wide, you weren't directly involved in that, is that so? That is correct. But do you know whether there were or were not 53 or 50-something applicants for the...
Sir, sorry to interrupt Mr Steele, but this is the second time Mr Steele's done this. I didn't think the tendering exercise was part of the inquiry. I do appreciate there's the economic catalyst type points to be made, and I'm not interrupting those. But I'm just putting a marker down that we do seem to be going into the why as opposed to the what good it might do. And I wonder if that's appropriate in this session.
That's probably right, isn't it, Mr Steele? And the witness has said he wasn't involved in that process.
Well, sir, I think there are 2 points to that. Firstly, the witness has told us about this in this report, being identified as the strongest as the 54 competing proposals. And the second point is this, sir, that I wasn't actually going into the competition issue at all. I was asking about this for a completely different purpose altogether, which I hope will become clear in a second or moment or two.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. Now, where were we, Mr Drummond? The obligation on the Council is to obtain best value for its assets, including this particular one. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct.
That's working, Mr Drummond. Oh, right. The light's not coming on, but it's working. Right. That makes it very confusing. Right. Best value. Mr Drummond, the Council has an obligation to obtain best value, which doesn't necessarily mean the best price, but it's a combination of various issues. Is that fair? Which I don't intend to go into.
That's my understanding.
And on the previous occasion, when the Council, after many, many years of getting no use on the building, took the decision that the best way of addressing best value was by having a not quite worldwide, but a large geographical area for tendering. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't really catch the question.
No, I'm not surprised. It's very poor. Sorry. Let me start that again. On the last occasion that the Council had to consider the question of best value for the building, they embarked upon a European-wide tendering process.
I'm not really able to speak on the thought process that led to that exercise, whether it was driven by best value or other considerations. I'm afraid I wasn't involved in that.
I take that point absolutely, but as a matter of fact, that's what the Council did.
I will take your word for it if that's the case.
Take your own word for it, because it's in your report, Mr Drummond. And that's, on the one hand, and as a matter of fact and law on the other, the Council are obliged to have best value.
Absolutely.
If, therefore, for whatever reason, at some date in the future, my clients departed the scene, does it seem likely that the Council would embark on a similar advertisement process again to try to secure best value for the site? That would be reasonable and sensible, wouldn't it?
I really couldn't comment on how that would be. Our Estates Department would take a decision on that, and I'm sure there'd be lots of routes considered.
I see. This is not within your jurisdiction, so to speak, at all, then?
I'm afraid not.
And you don't have any knowledge of the best value issue? Is that entirely for estates?
I'm aware of it, but it's not something that I would act upon.
Well, that might cut matters a little short. Just bear with me. Right. Well, let me then put a few further economic questions to you. If there's to be further delay in reusing this building for whatever purpose, from an economic perspective, would that be a good thing or a disadvantage?
Well, I suppose the thing you could see is if the building was brought back into use, whatever that use may be, then that would clearly be an increase in economic activity on the baseline, which is negligible. So from an economic point of view, can I try and put it in layman's terms, which I can understand? The sooner we get the building working again, the better. Would that be fair, from an economic perspective? From a purely economic perspective, obviously there would be other considerations. Yes, of course. And in addition to which, the longer the delay, the further will be the deterioration of the building, which is a separate consideration, isn't it? As not being a surveyor, I couldn't really comment on the rate of decline, so to speak. But as a general principle, buildings that are being used are better kept for than buildings that are sort of laying fallow. Neither of us need to be surveyors to know that, Mr. Drummond. And the longer that is the delay, the greater will be the expense to the City of Edinburgh Council and the taxpayers, like everybody in this room, because the Council will continue to have to pay however much it is to maintain the building on an annual basis, at least £250,000 a year. Isn't that correct? I mean, again, I wouldn't be involved in setting the budgets for that, but there would clearly be some level of cost associating with maintaining the building. Well, I think you have told us in your report earlier that at that time it was £250,000 a year. That was the figure quoted then. I haven't seen any projections for future costs.
No. Well, let's even assume it retains at £250,000. The longer the delay, the greater the expense to the City of Edinburgh Council and the taxpayer in maintaining the building or trying to keep it wind and watertight. Is that so?
Yes, that's arithmetically correct. Yes.
And is this also logically correct? Therefore, there would be a further economic advantage in getting it back into use as quickly as possible, off the hands of the council.
I mean, when we would look at economic benefit, we would really focus on jobs and the sort of related impacts. The financial impact in the council was not something we would give consideration to.
Well, let me ask you to do so now, because I'm a taxpayer, and I think we're all concerned about this, Mr. Drummond. Surely it's pretty obvious to you as an economist that the sooner the council can stop paying its £250,000 a year, the better for the taxpayer, surely.
It's not really something I can give a professional opinion on, because that would be, I suppose, in the context of the council's wider strategies and policies.
And from an economic point of view, you don't see that that might be a slight advantage, do you?
Yeah, again, in our economic appraisals, we would really focus only on the jobs benefit and related benefits. The financial impact on the council would be for others to consider.
So can we agree this overall, Mr. Drummond, that the longer the delay in rescuing this historic building, the greater the economic cost to the country? And I'm not there talking only about the maintenance cost of £250,000. I'm talking about the lost jobs, the lost opportunities, the lost jobs direct, the lost jobs indirect, and the spin-off benefits. The longer this goes on, the greater the cost to the country.
Well, as noted, I'm not in a position to comment on the financial cost in the longer term. In terms of the economic cost, there would be there's clearly an opportunity cost associated with not doing anything with the building, whatever that may be.
So can we agree this then, that the sooner this building is put to productive use, the better economically? That must be so, mustn't it?
From a purely economic perspective, bringing the building back into productive use sooner rather than later would be preferable.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Just bear with us, Mr. Drummond. Just a few questions from us, and I'm referring to your recognition. At paragraph 6.4, towards the end, you talk about any reduction in the quality of the hotel could be expected to reduce economic impacts. Have you got any reason to believe that there's a risk or a significant risk of the quality of the hotel reducing?
Well, in terms of the safeguards against that contractually and so forth, or planning conditions, I'm not in a position to comment on that. I don't have knowledge of that. I suppose the observation is made in the paper that it's rare for hotels in Edinburgh to close. I would say what is less rare is for hotels to maybe go down market is unfair, but to be value engineered. And there have been some recent examples of hotels that have changed ownership, and there have perhaps been concessions made to try and either boost revenue or reduce cost, which could be perceived as reducing that quality.
Thanks for that. And at paragraph 8.3 of your recognition, you say that the economic impacts of the development aren't considered to be strategically significant. Is that a subjective judgment, or is that measured against a scale?
No, it's one of those terms that crops up occasionally in policies, but there doesn't really have any quantifiable basis, which can be quite challenging. I suppose when we were thinking of something that's a strategic scale, it's I suppose if I can refer to an exercise that was done a few years ago, which was a scenario planning exercise, and that was looking at the impact of the Royal Bank of Scotland closing and leaving Edinburgh altogether, and the impact of that would be thousands, if not tens of thousands of jobs and massive knock-on effects on suppliers, impacts on the property market. Talking something that would have a really fundamental impact in Edinburgh. I don't think there'll be many really individual buildings in Edinburgh that will have that kind of strategic impact.
Thanks for that, Mr. Drummond. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Drummond, just one matter. In paragraph 3.1 of your recognition, you talk about the building being mothballed by the council, and in paragraph 2.1.2 of your inquiry report, you elaborated slightly on that by explaining that prior to being mothballed, the site was put to a variety of uses, including office space for council workers and other organisations. What I wondered was, have you any idea when that mothballing took place?
As I understand it, was mothballed in 2010. Up until that point, I believe it was being used by what is now Essential Edinburgh. And
do you know whether the figure of £250,000 per annum that the council was spending on the building was incurred before or after the mothballing?
It's a figure that's been bandied around for, probably going back to when the proposals of these emerged. So certainly it was the figure that was quoted back then at 2020. I haven't heard an updated figure. It could be different now.
Okay.
Thank you both. We've made good progress. Are you ready to lead Ms Park's evidence?
I would appreciate a break at this point before moving on to Mrs Park.
A 15-minute break?
That would be fine.
Okay,
thank you.
Perfect. Let's break until 2:45.
I hope you have to hand your original recognition, your rebuttal recognition, which I don't think we'll need to look at, and your original inquiry report, which I think for the record is CEC 6. But all I'm going to ask you to look at the moment is your recognition.
Okay.
And I think we know that you're still Mrs Carla Parks. You've already given evidence from your recognition in respect to the matters at 2.1.1 and 2.1.2, and today you're going to be addressing 2.1.3, the economic benefits of the 2015 and 2017 proposals, and whether there is scope for these to be achieved in another way or on another site. And your evidence on that matter, I think, is to be found in section 9 of your recognition. You already read last time the policy context, which I think is still relevant,
yes.
At 9.1, and the new part begins at 9.6. So could I ask you to start reading from your recognition, please, at 9.6.
Okay, thank you. Net economic impacts and whether these benefits could be delivered elsewhere at another site. It is acknowledged that the proposals would contribute towards the supply of existing hotel sites in the city's pipeline. The proposals could potentially help to meet demand for upscale tourism accommodation in the city centre, as recognised in the Tourism Development Framework for Scotland. It is recognised that such hotels have the potential to generate higher than average employment rates and other related benefits. In assessing the impacts of the development on economic growth, the supporting application documents include forecasts on gross economic impact only, not netting impacts as required under the Scottish planning policy. They did not take account of any potential loss to the existing or proposed businesses, i.e. displacement as a result of the proposals, or the benefits accrued if the proposals do not proceed. The additional inquiry document submitted ostensibly to demonstrate the net impacts of the development is not considered sufficiently robust to enable a fully realistic assessment of net economic impacts and to capture in a meaningful way the resulting contributions to the economy in accordance with provisions of Scottish planning policy and the Scottish Government's related draft advice on net economic benefit and planning. It is observed that the particularly high level of predicted economic benefits and range of these impacts on the wider economy appear to rely heavily on the hotel's continued use as a 6-star hotel. It is maintained that neither the quality of the service or the continued use of the premises as such a high-end hotel can be ensured through the planning system. This would also be the case in terms of how the hotel is operated. Therefore, it is concluded that the risk of a hotel being run as a 4- or 5-star hotel should be taken into account when considering potential uncertainties. Furthermore, it is contended that the associated impacts on the operations of existing and proposed 4- and 5-star hotels should be given due consideration in estimating the associated displacement effects. It is further contended that if no sites are available currently to meet the requirements of this particular hotel operator, the economic benefits arising may be delivered through the uptake of a suitable windfall site or incrementally through the uptake of a number of smaller sites by other operators, which together could deliver similar overall benefits to the city's economy. Examples of such opportunities include the recently approved 225-bedroom hotel at India Buildings in Victoria Street and the smaller building. At this point, I would just like to clarify, I referred to the Royal Bank of Scotland building on St Andrew Square mistakenly. Apologies for that. What I actually meant was a 5-star hotel at the Bank of Scotland building in St Andrew Square, which is proposed and it has been recommended for approval by the council at this stage, by the council planning at this stage. Furthermore, in considering the impact to the wider economy, it is contended that the potential for such impacts to be delivered at a site within the wider region should be taken into account in the review of suitable alternative sites. The Gleneagles Hotel is one such a successful example. It is not anticipated that the appellants have provided a sufficiently convincing case to demonstrate that there are no other suitable sites for such a hotel in the entire country. Notwithstanding these considerations, the predicted extent of economic impacts arising from both the 2015 and 17 proposals are significantly lower than those arising from a new city centre office development. The impact of the proposals are not considered to make a strategically significant contribution to the wider regional or national economy.
I think you read the rest of this last time.
Yes.
So could I ask you to move on to 11.3, your final conclusion?
Thank you. Conclusions. In respect of both applications for planning permission, there's a strong presumption.
No, I'm sorry, just straight to 11.3.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. The economic benefits of the proposed developments, as predicted by the appellants, are not sufficient to overcome the presumptions against granting planning permission arising from Sections 59 and 64 of the Listed Buildings and Conservation Area Act, and from the failure to accord with the development plan in such significant ways.
And I think that, like last time you gave evidence, you're content that matters of your evidence concerning conditions should be dealt with at the hearing session next week.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs. Parks. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Steele.
Thank you, sir. Ms Parks, good afternoon again. Does that therefore mean that the issues of securing the 6-star hotel, if I can call it that way, by virtue of conditions and or Section 75, all of that we can discuss next week, next Tuesday, or whatever day it is that so? And I'll leave that to one side just now. Now, Ms Parks, do you have any economic qualifications?
No.
Can we agree that the way these things invariably work in the Council is that you, as the planning officer, rely on the advice and information which comes from your Economic Development Department?
That's correct, yes. We take it into account in our assessment, though we have to weigh it against other planning considerations.
Yes, of course, but you rely on it to the extent that that's where you get your economic judgment from, because you're not economically qualified yourself.
No, and we also have to take into account the overall requirements of Scottish National Planning Policy and the SPP and NPF3, which and their requirements under that as well.
And I would hope you might even consider the development plan. Would that be fair?
Well, obviously that goes without saying in my position, yes.
Right, okay. Right. So far as hotels are concerned, do you have any qualifications of any descriptions in relation to hotel issues?
No, I don't.
And do you have any experience in relation to finding hotel sites?
I don't, and that's not normally part of my duties to do so.
No. Why is it then that you're making comments about these issues in this precognition? That would be rather unusual, wouldn't it?
Well, my main reason for doing that is through my experience of working in the city centre major team and in other parts of the planning development management function, we do come across planning applications and also inquiries on a relatively frequent scale in terms of potential sites that would be suitable for hotels. It's quite regular for that to happen.
Now, are you in a position to dispute, Ms Parks, and if so, how? Are you in a position to dispute any of the evidence given by Mr Kett, Mr Finney, Mr Logan or Mr Jones?
No, I wouldn't be in a position to do that.
Exactly,
directly.
that's very fair. Thank you very much. Now, you say at 9:11 of your precognition that you seem to suggest that we should have demonstrated that there were no other suitable sites for an hotel in the entire country.
Well,
is that, please, I haven't
responding to...
Just a second,
Sorry.
Mrs Parks. Is that seriously your position and that of the Council, the entire country? Well,
I was responding to the potential, which I believe has been raised somewhere in your submissions, that it would help to, it would be of national significance, that it would benefit the country at a national level. So if you had something benefiting the country at a national level, then I would consider that you would be looking at also other sites within the whole of Scotland to see if it could meet that potential elsewhere.
Well, I'll leave that matter to the reporters, Ms Parks. Now, can I just ask you about Gleneagles, please? Do you know the main attraction at Gleneagles?
Well, not having been there myself, apparently it's partly to do with golf.
Apparently what, sorry?
Partly to do with golf, I believe.
Can we maybe even suggest it might be quite largely to do with golf? Would that be fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Right. So what on earth, Ms Parks, has that got to do with the application that's before the reporters? It's got 2 or 2.5 or 3 golf courses, internationally renowned. What on earth has that got to do with our proposal?
Well, I really don't know enough about your particular brand. A brand hotel is not really a planning consideration, but I understand that you have different attractions.
Well, I'm sure the hotel will have many attractions, but Ms Parks, you do know that there's not even a pitch and putt proposal within our application, is there?
Not unless you consider the roof.
Can we agree that, in fact, there's utterly no comparison to be drawn between our proposal and Gleneagles?
I was just talking about the principle of a hotel going elsewhere. I know each hotel brings its own attractions, and if it's arts and culture, that potentially could be provided elsewhere.
Now, you told us in your report at 1321 about the recent grant of planning permission for the Royal Bank building on St Andrews Square. Now, is that the matter which you corrected yourself about a moment ago?
Yes.
So you're a little bit ahead of the game in relation to the planning permission, is that so?
It is so, although I believe it is going to planning committee next week with a recommendation for approval.
Yes, but that is not the same as actually having been consented, is it?
Not quite, no.
No. It's pretty significantly different, isn't it? It may have the support of the a department, but that's some distance away from actually having a consent. So
as I've corrected my report.
Yeah, you've corrected that. And the second thing isn't, it isn't the Royal Bank, but the bank.
That's correct, and I did mention that in my rebuttal.
Yes, you absolutely did.
Yeah.
You did. But am I also right in suggesting to you that that, in fact, is a private club, an outpost of Gleneagles?
Okay.
It's not actually a hotel, but a private club, which is to be associated with Gleneagles Hotel. Is that not so?
If that's what you're telling me.
No, I'm not telling you anything. You're the planning officer.
Well,
I'm asking you to tell us. Is it not? Is that not the way the paperwork before you exists?
I don't have the paperwork in front of me of that exact application, but that is what I understood it to be, a hotel. But if it's a club, then I understand it's slightly different.
And coming back to my starting point, Ms. Parks, the situation is that you and your department rely on the evidence from the economists in the Council in relation to economic issues. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, but again, we have to see it within the planning context and take a balanced viewpoint.
Fine, thank you very much. No further questions. Thank you, Ms. Parks.
Thanks, Mr. Steele. Mr. Thompson.
I have no re-examination. Thank you, sir.
In that case, thanks again, Ms.
Thank
Parks.
you very much.
Okay, that's as far as we can take it today. I understand the remaining two witnesses will be arriving tomorrow morning.
As of last night, I was told he was coming, and I hope to see him at 5:30. So,
And in terms of the order, is it Dr. Conlon first?
Yes, sir.
So tomorrow we'll have Dr. Conlon, then Dr. Batas.
that should make things faster as well, if we do it that way as well.
Okay, great. Any issues to be discussed before we close for the evening? Is there any update, for example, on the joint statement between the Council and the appellant?
I think I'm right in saying that that has just whizzed back to us in the last little while, and we are going to discuss it shortly. I think, is that correct? I believe. On the lift issue, which I know is preoccupying Mr. Innes, I've told him privately that Mr. Gibb is actually on holiday, which may account for the delay, and his boss is on holiday. But despite that, Mr. Gibb is trying to put something together to get before the inquiry, which we will do as soon as we reasonably can. Okay. Any other issues? Mr. Innes.
Just to say, yes, I'm very grateful to Mr. Steele for that, and I look forward to receiving that position. Also, I think my predictions today have been proved accurate in terms of the number of witnesses. And whilst
There's always a first, Mr. Innes.
Yes, and as long just say, legal tender may not have been something we were able to discuss this afternoon, but it's running at 2 o'clock at Haydock tomorrow.
Okay. In that case, I think we'll close for the evening until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thanks.